screen going crazy.
Yeah, that's not the screen, that's the camera. I need to fix the camera. It shakes because it's on the vent.
$51.
5 seconds.
Eh?
5 seconds.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'll call on Councillor D'Angelo to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattewaronk and the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the First Credit Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The city of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live.
Thank you, Councillor D'Angelo. Adoption of, no, are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? I got Councillor D'Angelo and a seconder, Councillor Sentence. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes? I got Councillor Decker and Councillor Didavides. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Mayor's report. On August 18th, I was joined by MP Jeff Birch at the Niagara Cricket Club, located on Town Line Road in the city of Thorold, for the announcement of a Trillium grant they received to purchase new equipment for the club. On that weekend, they were hosting a senior cricket tournament involving Team Australia, Team England, and Team Canada. Cricket is now the fastest growing sport in Canada, and the Niagara Cricket Club in the city of Thorold has experienced a very similar exponential growth in the last 3 years. On August 24th, I attended Staff Appreciation Luncheon held at the Doherty Arena. Once again, on behalf of City Council, I would like to thank city staff for all you do to keep the city of Thorold running smoothly. We have a great team, Team Thorold. On August 30th, I attended a roundtable discussion held at Brock University with Federal Minister Philomena Tassi, the minister responsible for Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario. It was an excellent panel discussion on issues of importance across the Niagara region. Also on August 30th, I attended the plaque dedication ceremony to recognize the $50,000 donation made by the Ontario Paper Thorold Foundation towards the pavilion located in the Battle of Beaver Dams Park. I was joined by Councillors O'Hare and Councillor D. Didavides, as well as city staff and the Ontario Paper Foundation board members. Ron Hartle spoke on their behalf. This foundation is very active across Niagara and has been very generous, donating to various projects across the city of Thorold. Some are the naming rights for our senior centers, the washroom at Macadam Park, the gazebo at Port Robinson Park, the newly accessible walkway at the DQ House Heritage Park, and the outdoor patio at Canada Games Park. On September 2nd, I was joined by Councillor O'Hara and Economic Development Manager Ken Schulten at ribbon-cutting ceremonies for 2 new businesses, both located in the plaza at 1809 Merrittville Highway, on the south corner of Merrittville Highway and Highway 20. Welcome Heart Designs, owner and designer Marlene Hamilton opened a women's clothing boutique, and Brown Sugar Decors. Sharon Neufeld, her business specializes in customized events decor, customized balloon decor, and customized wedding decor. We thank you both for investing in the city and wish you much success moving forward. On September 7th, a flag-raising ceremony in honor of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month was held at City Hall. This region-wide initiative is organized by Patty Bauer, who lost her daughter Miranda to a rare form of childhood cancer. Councillor O'Hare, who brought remarks, Councillor Sentence, Regional Councillor Whalen, and city staff joined Patty Bauer and Aniko Bisdale for the flag raising. Individual gold ribbons were also displayed in our front garden with names of children who have been impacted by childhood cancer. On September 8th, I attended an information session put on by the Niagara Regional Police Service and the Niagara Police Services Board at their headquarters in Niagara Falls, Ontario. This was a very informative session highlighting their roles and responsibility as well as the organizational pressures they face on a daily basis. September 9th was a busy day. I attended the following events: the second annual Harvest Fest hosted by the Knights of Columbus at Holy Rosary Hall in the adjoining parking lot, which was well attended and a very successful community event. The Truth and Reconciliation Unity Walk hosted by the Indigenous Diabetes Health Circle at the Canada Games Park outdoor track, where I brought remarks on behalf of City Council. The Brock Cares Days of Service Welcome Wagon Kickoff event held in the Jubilee Courtyard at Brock University, where I brought remarks and was joined by Danny Vukovic and Michelle Briscoe from our Bylaw Enforcement Department. And Celebration of Nations, the Border Crossing Blues event held at the PAC Center in downtown St. Catharines. Regarding the community market and the Thorold community-wide garage sale, I'll turn it over to Councillor O'Hare for a few remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start with the garage sale. Just a reminder to everybody, this is the 20th annual community-wide garage sale. Last year there were over 110 vendors, and probably this year there'll be more. It's this Saturday, September the 16th. It starts at 8 a.m. Anyone that wants more information can reach the event on the calendar at the City of Thorold's website, so calendar.thorold.ca. Look for the community-wide garage sale. There is a map that lays out all the homes that are hosting the event, as well as if you are a vendor or would like to be one, there's an application to get onto the map. So that's this Saturday. Come on out. It's a lot of fun and a lot of treasures to be found. Next, I'd like to talk about the community market. It was a great success this year, and I would like to thank a few people. The vendors who stuck with us and came out every Wednesday. Thank you very much. I'd like to give a special thanks to Small Scale Farms for your direct involvement in helping us get the market off the ground. This was our inaugural year, and it was a great success. To all the residents who came out to support our local businesses, it was a joy to see you there. To Councillor Didavidas, thank you for your belief in the market and your business savvy skills that solved so many bumps in the road. It was an amazing joy to have you on board. And lastly, to staff, we couldn't have done it without you. Every week you work so hard. I'd like to specifically applaud Dave Baldoni, who's here with us tonight, and especially Jacob Tedesco for taking on this project with such great passion. We succeeded thanks to your dedication. See you all next year.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hare. Councillor Hanley, did you want to add something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll tap myself on the back. It was myself that brought the motion forward at the budget to get the farmers market going. It was Councillor Didavidas who upped the ante to 25,000. You know, I was instrumental in getting small scale farms on board. It was me through the previous council with the previous director of operations before Dave Alboni that tried to get the farmers market going. So I'll pat myself in the back. I had a good part to do with it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend all summer because of my work commitments of the town. but it was a great success. I'm glad to see that Councillor Daidavitis and others stepped up to the plate to make it such a success it was. But we all need to be given accolades, all councillors that believed in it. And I'm glad to see that the vendors improved over the course of the event from like 14 to over 30. I just have one other thing, Mr. Mayor, too. I think it's great if I could mention that, you know, the city of Thorold did have a luncheon for the Thorold city staff, and it's great that we support local and we shop local and we buy local. But the only unfortunate thing about that whole event was the food was brought in from an outside of the city of Thorold. The food was bought from a restaurant in Welland, Mr. Mayor. And to have a luncheon that is in recognition of the city of Thorold employees, where I wear proudly my jacket when I go to town that says Shop Thorold, and you know, we promote shop local and we say support local, but it's not right when we actually go outside our municipality and buy the food that was given to our employees for that luncheon for the Thorold City
Thank you.
staff.
Thank you,
So if
Councillor
we could see that could be corrected, Mr. Mayor, in the future.
Yeah.
It's something like the Heinz ketchup and the French ketchup deal. We promote it, we need to shop it. Practice what we preach. I just wanted to make that note, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. On Friday, September 8th, I was joined by MP Vance Badaway, Councillors O'Hare, Sentence, Regional Councillor Whalen, City staff, members from the NPCA, Sassafras Farms, Thorold Legion Branch 17, Elizabeth DeFruscia, her son Dominic, family and friends to celebrate the official opening of the Pollinator Garden located in the Battle of Beaver Dams Park, honoring her late husband, Dominic Mickey DeFruscio. Mickey served as the City of Thorold's representative on the NPCA Board of Directors for 25 years and was made an honorary lifetime member due to his dedication and commitment to conservation. One of his favorite lines was, "Long live the monarch butterfly." The monarch butterfly, a member of the milkweed butterfly group, is an endangered species, and Mickey worked hard to see their population grow. He grew milkweed, supported pollinator gardens and habitats such as this one to help achieve that goal. A year for health, community, and connection. September and October fall program calendars are now available. These activities geared towards older adults and multi-generational participation take place at various locations throughout the city. These include the TCAG, Thorold Public Library, and the Thorold Senior Center. Please visit the Thorold Community Activity Group's website for more information. The Thorold Community Pool is now closed for the season. Splash pads are still open. They will close sometimes in September. The date will be communicated when confirmed. And that's the end of my mayor's remarks. Presentations. Up first is the Terry Fox Run, and I'll call on Cindy Dixon for a presentation respecting the 2023 Terry Fox Run. Cindy, welcome. No, I don't think that mic's on. Just,
There. Is that good?
yeah.
Okay. Thanks for having me, everybody. Mayor, members of council, thanks for having me here this evening. As you know, it was tradition for Mike Sharon to always come to see you the week before the run, so I'm just following his lead. Before I begin, though, I would like to take the time to thank the counselors who have come out and helped us on the day of the run. Help put up things, help hand things out, help registration. There's 3 of you. Thank you, Ken Sentence. Thank you, Tim O'Toole, and thank you, Nella Decker. I'm so glad that you're jumping back in this year, too. Okay, so that's great. I truly appreciate your help and glad that you're coming back to help. Terry Fox's incredible journey and his enduring legacy of hope and determination continue to inspire us, not just in Canada, but all over the world. I was just away recently and came to find out that they actually do a Terry Fox Run in the Caribbean. This year, my family and I invite you to be part of something really remarkable. The Terry Fox Run, it's not just a run. It's a testament to human spirit, a celebration of unity and a powerful symbol of perseverance. I would like you to join in watching an inspirational video from ahead of the foundation in Toronto.
Hey everyone. I can't believe it. It's run season, just like that. We're already into August. The countdown's on. Oh my God, there's so much to do still. I get it. What we ask of all of you is so much, and I'm so grateful. I mean, you all do it. We have 600 runs across this country. We have all the schools, and why do we do it? Well, 43 years ago, Terry inspired us, and Terry said, we need to change the way we're treating people with cancer, and if we're going to do that properly, we need to invest in research, and so we do. Is it worth it? Like, we've been doing this for 43 years. Are we making any progress? Yes. Thank God we are. So when we go back to 1940, 25% of people diagnosed with cancer survived. Today we're over 60%. For some cancers, we're seeing survival rates well into the 90s. This is exciting, it's important. Is there more to do? Yes. Still 2 in 5 are diagnosed with cancer. It's a horrible disease. It's horrible. Everyone that's been affected, we know this is a terrible disease. But there is hope. And at Terry Fox, we know what he taught us. He taught us when we join together and we do things together, that we can do an extraordinary. He taught us that impossible is just something you go out and do. We've now brought together almost 30 institutions across Canada, and we're working on a single goal to change the way we do research. We're sharing data, we're sharing information. When we look forward into the future, we can take a patient regardless of where they're diagnosed. We can take that tumor, we can then sequence it, and we'll be able to compare it to all the other tumors that are out there, and we can decide what is the best treatment for you, for your family member. This is why we do the hard work that we're doing. This is why we run. This is why, we set up the water and we set up the hot dogs, and we call so many people and say, will you support us? Will you help us? We need to continue to do this until we find a solution. So with that, hopefully you feel good and excited. Like, the work you do is important. It's important for other people. Research is still key. We're making headway. I believe we can still find a world without cancer. I believe that's what Terry showed us and taught us. And all we have to do is run to that next telephone pole to make something, wow, happen. So thank you. Countdown, we have to raise more money than ever. So what we did last year is last year. This year, we're gonna do better. And I'm really grateful for the work you're gonna put in advance. Let's go do it. Terry showed us the way, one foot in front of the other. Thank you all for your help.
So basically, there's some really good information there. And it makes you realize that this is not just a run. Because of Terry, it's a movement that reminds us that together we can conquer any obstacle. It's a movement that proves that one person, one idea can change the world. My family is a testament to that. At 23 years of age, our daughter Candace was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. She was already at the pace of this disease at 82% cancer cells in her blood. It turned our world upside down. And as I sat at the Juravinski Hospital in the ICU, trying to embrace the fact that we were going to lose her, a brilliant blood cancer specialist sat down with me and he said, "Don't worry, we have a cure for this. It's something really new. It's called a stem cell transplant." I was overwhelmed with hope that I wouldn't have had if it weren't for the research and the fundraising that helps provide it. Hope that my family and I wouldn't have had without Terry Fox. So I invite you all, lace up your shoes, bring your friends and colleagues, families and dogs. They need a walk anyway, Sunday morning. So bring them out, lots of dogs, and join us this Sunday, September 17th. The location is Thorold Community Credit Union. Registration 9 to 10, promptly starting at 10 a.m. The Pipers will lead us out as usual, followed by the fire truck, and finish line, hot dogs, and water for free for everyone. If you want to donate online directly to the Thorold site, there is a direct link. So you can probably find it on the actual terryfox.org, but it's run.terryfox.ca/Thorold. I'll say it again if you want to write it down. run.terryfox.ca/Thorold, and that ensures that the money goes directly to our site. If you want to donate to Team Candace, which all goes to our Thorold site anyway, it's all under that umbrella, contact me at the credit union and I will personally send you the link. I feel together we can keep Terry's dream alive, and together we can make a difference. So again, join us this Sunday. You can run, bike, walk, scooter, do it whatever way you want to do it, and run for a future without cancer. I really hope to see you all there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and I'll open the floor. Are there any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Thanks, Cindy. You've done a wonderful job since Mike retired. Me and my family will be there to support Team Candace.
Thank you.
And bless you. And
Thank you.
just to let you know, I've been pushing it at school. We've got over 700 kids now
Good.
at Our
That's
Lady
awesome.
Holy Rosary. And our run is the following Friday
Oh,
at
that's
school.
good.
So we'll have 700 kids. And thank you for doing this. Appreciate
Great.
it.
Yeah, your school has always been a really big supporter and participant, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there anyone else that would like to comment? Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I applaud you, Cindy. I can admit I've never been out to the run or the walk, but I have always donated. My mom and my brother both succumbed to it. I myself had cancer. Was lucky that I'm a survivor. So I give you accolades for all that you do, and I bless you and your family and your daughter. And for sure, we'll be donating again as we always do. God bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, Cindy, thank you so much for coming, and I'll repeat that this Sunday, September 17th, at the Thorold Community Credit Union is the starting point of the Terry Fox Run, which registration is from 9 to 10, and the Terry Fox Run begins at 10 a.m. And I'm sure it's going to be another successful event. I look forward to being there, and I want to thank you for coming to council.
Thank you for having me. Okay.
Okay, up next, the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network, NEBN overview, and up I have call on Walter Sendzik, NEBN board member, for a presentation respecting the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network overview. And welcome, Walter. I see you wear many hats these days.
Yeah, the one hat I'm glad not to be wearing is Mayor of St. Catharines. Did that for long enough, but I would like to thank Council and Mayor Ugolini for the opportunity to come and speak here today. When I retired, stepped down, whatever you call it, when no longer ran for Mayor of St. Catharines, I made a commitment that I wanted to stay involved in the environment, wanted to stay involved in things to do with water preservation and the preservation of the ecology that surrounds us. And hearing Mickey DeFrugia and what he's done in the Thorold area really sets the standard for where we need to go. So today's discussion really is about a correspondence that you received in your council agendas. It's the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network, and Mayor Ugolini asked me to come here today and just present an overview of it. The detail that was in your package was sent out to 23 municipalities and 7 regions that run the spine of the Niagara Escarpment. And as we know, the Niagara Escarpment is under the jurisdiction of the Niagara Escarpment Commission. As part of the UNESCO designation that was made in 1990, there has been a review of how the UNESCO designation applies to each of the jurisdictions in which there is a UNESCO designation. In the Niagara context, the Niagara Escarpment Commission has also been the oversight body that is working with the grassroots, if you will, of the municipalities and the organizations that are along the Niagara Escarpment itself. The UNESCO the UNESCO body has looked at how the interaction with the grassroots or the communities interface with the regulatory body, which would be the Niagara Escarpment Commission, and it has requested that there be a separation of those two working in parallel, but not having the same objectives as we would have with a regulatory body versus what would be more of a community grassroots voice. And so the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network has been in development for the last couple of years, and it's important because it's been in partnership with Plenty Canada, and Plenty Canada is an Indigenous-led organization. And so we worked on a co-governance model where there is a strong Indigenous-led piece to this and the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network, and it's working in parallel with this organization. So on Thursday, I'll be attending a board meeting in Six Nations, and that is where we meet on a basis. And Plenty Canada is the body that is helping us through this co-governance piece. And it's unique because we'll be one of the first organizations that has this co-governance model in place as well. So there's a lot of firsts with the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network. Tim Johnson, who was and is the founder with Michelle Elise Burnett from the Celebration of Nations, which just took place at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre this past weekend. He is also a lead on this Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network as well. Brock University is involved. There's a number of different community organizations or individuals who work within community organizations that run along the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere, the Niagara Escarpment itself. And the important piece to this is that through the new network is that there is a periodic review that needs to take place in order for us to continue to have that designation of the UNESCO designation. And so there's a 10-year periodic review. There's also self-studies that have to be submitted. It's a pretty comprehensive report that has to be submitted to this organization. And in order for that to be achieved, we're looking for the support, the reconfirmation, if you will, of the municipalities that are represented within the Niagara Escarpment area. And so this is the first venture for myself. There's going to be a lot of presentations. We're going to be up in Bruce County. We're going to be up in the Manitoula Islands area. There's a lot of different presentations that have to take place, but here in my hometown of Niagara, getting the support of the Niagara municipalities is critical. And I think we can all appreciate how important the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere is to the ecology and to the economy of Niagara. And so having your support as a council is critical. And so that's why I'm here today. The motion was included in your package. I want to be aware of your time. If you have any questions, more than willing to take those questions. But I will say, you had two council colleagues from Niagara Falls that just finished running the entire 725 kilometers of the Niagara Escarpment, Mike Strange and Victor Petriangelo from Niagara Falls, and they were doing it as a fundraiser for cancer research. So listening to the Terry Fox presentation just before, you get an understanding of how important even the community initiatives that take place within the Niagara Escarpment. And they raised over $50,000 for cancer care for children with cancer in our community. And so again, just shining a light. And when I interviewed him yesterday on my radio station on 610 CKTB, I asked him about that experience of running the Niagara Escarpment, and they have a very different perspective of how important that ecology is to our communities. And just listening to them talk about the 28-day run really opened my eyes, even as an individual who's involved, about how unique that important piece of geology and geography is to our communities. So that's it. Thanks for the opportunity, and it's great to be on this side of the fence.
Thank you, Walter, but I'll open the floor if there's any questions from council to Walter regarding this presentation. Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Walter. Walter, is this something you're asking for us to do right now? Are you asking us to put the notice of motion on the floor right now?
Yeah, the motion was included in the package, and so what council has been doing is just lifting the motion and then endorsing them.
Okay, well, I'd
best
like to
that could
put the
happen.
motion on the floor if I may.
Okay. Is there any further questions before we do that, though? I'd like to, if there's any further questions to the presenter before we do that. Okay. Being no questions, thank you, Walter. So now I have a motion to pull that, pull the resolution and put it on the floor. And did you want to second it, Councillor D'Angelo? So I got Councillor D'Angelo as a seconder. Are there any discussion regarding the resolution? And the appropriate municipality where it needs to go and everything will be put in by the clerk. Okay, seeing no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Where's Walter? Very thorough, very simple, done. Thanks once again, Walter. Now I have the next presentation, which is sump pump policy, program policy. Omar Samara, are you here? Is he here?
He's online, Mr. Mayor. We're just moving him in as a panelist.
Okay.
Okay, Omar, you're in the Zoom meeting as a panelist now. You should have the ability to unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can, Omar.
Thank you for having me and for this opportunity. I'm here to present my concerns about homes that don't have a basement and are therefore deliberately disqualified for the sump pump program. The issues I'm having is that some older homes I find are having structural issues, neighborly issues that encourage flooding to occur. And there's also a deficiency in the ability to find qualified plumbers who can meet the criteria that the city is looking for and who can qualify to create a design plan that would be suitable to the city's needs. I'm very happy to work with the city, and I do want them to take into consideration the circumstances that we have endured for the past year. We have not been able to successfully find the right support that is needed. And I do care about voicing this and sharing this concern with the community. I sent an email, I hope somebody had reviewed it, with more details and with pictures. And I would like to also get a clear understanding in as much detail as possible about what is preventing the city from improving the sump pump program. I've heard in the past that it was put on hold or that there's currently it's not being run or there are some challenges. I'd like to hear what those challenges are in as much detail as possible. And I care about this community, this Thorold community, to continue to be a thriving community. It's considered, as far as I know, it's considered the top economically in the entire Niagara region. So I don't know what else to say, but I do think that perhaps there could be potential to improve the sump pump program. And if there isn't an option to include homes that don't have basements, then are there other alternative options that the city can help with that we would need to discuss? So I know that I have a short, limited time, and I want to answer any questions before I proceed.
Are you done with your presentation, Omar, before I open the floor for questions?
So far, pretty much, yes.
So your presentation's finished, because once I open the floor to questions, then that'll be the end of your presentation. So I want to make sure if you have something else to say, please say it now.
The second last thing I would like to say is that I would appreciate working with city councilors directly on this issue and on this concern. So if I could be assigned a qualified city councilor who could seriously and compassionately work with me, I'm more than happy to do so, so we can find options and look into how we can present this concern in the best way possible.
Thank you, Omar. And so now I'm going to open the floor for any questions from council to Omar. Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just looking at some of the pictures in the presentation, and it looks like, well, I'm looking at one right now. It's got a picture of a water meter. Is that in a basement?
Wait, I'll ask Steve, do you want to answer that? Or are you familiar with this, or do you want?
Well, these are pictures in the presentation. That's why I was asking the.
Okay,
proponent.
Omar, did you want to answer that? And Steve's here as well.
Once again, I don't have a basement. This is not a house that has there's no basement, there's no crawl space. That was mentioned in the email, and that room is the back room of the house. And I'm here to advocate for homes that are old. This particular home was built in the 30s. And I find that the city is supporting newer homes that are newly being built, but older homes, I don't see the city helping them in any ways, simply because they don't have a basement. So I hope that clarifies your question.
Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that answers my question, because it's hard to tell. That looked like a basement to me. I've been in many homes where I've seen that, but that one, if that's the back of the house, that's fine. What I thought might be prudent at this point in time is if I could make a motion just to refer this to staff, so they could come back with a report outlining our current program, how it's being utilized, how it can be expanded, how it can be improved upon, and taking some of the comments that the presenter has into consideration and respond to those in the report. I think that might be the most prudent, because we're not all 100% familiar with this. I've seen this applied at many homes to stop sewer backups. So there's some opportunities there, but I think from a council standpoint, I think we need a little bit more information before we make any sort of decision. So
Okay.
that would be my suggestion.
You're
Mr. Mayor.
moving that. I need a seconder for the staff report. I got Councillor DeRose. Is everybody good with that? Is there any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Any further discussion on this? Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo.
Mr. Mayor, just for the timeliness of this, so that the proponent or the presenter has an idea how long this may take, can we just get a rough idea when we can expect that report from staff?
Jeff, would you have a timeline on what that would entail and what timeline you might be looking at?
I think, Mr. Mayor, the second meeting in October might be the soonest we could bring it.
Okay, that should be, so that's our goal, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that would be quite helpful.
Okay, thank you. Omar, I want to thank you for presenting tonight, and we look forward to the staff report coming back. Is he gone? Okay. Okay. Now we're going to move on to delegations. Up first, report PWCS 84 2023 respecting consultant award South Main Street Bridge replacement design. Up first, I have Ron Devereaux, a resident, respecting this report. And Ron, you're here. I seen you earlier. Yes. Come on up to the microphone and give us your name and address, and then you have 10 minutes for your delegation.
Thank you, Mayor Ugolini, councilors, and staff. Before I begin, could I hand out a couple of pages? There's questions, so that the staff members can follow the questions as I have some questions.
Our clerk will come and get them.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you for the opportunity to address the report of the consultant award for South Main Street Bridge replacement design. Sorry, I'm out of order here. My name is Ron Devereaux. I live at 43 South Street North, Port Robinson East. Without having the details of the RFP document as an attachment to the report, some information in the report lacks specific details. So I'm here to simply to ask council to have city staff provide clarification tonight of a few statements in the report by answering 6 very basic questions tonight. I have been actively involved as a volunteer community co-leader on this project since it first became a municipal issue 5 years ago in April of 2018. I have attended every minute of every public information center held with RJ Burnside Consultants and all other public meetings on this project. So it's great for Port Robinson East residents to see that we are finally moving a significant step closer to the day when figuratively shovels will be put in the ground. Obviously, I am 100% in favor of this project moving forward. I am regularly asked by Port Robinson East residents, what's happening with the bridge? So with the answers to these 6 questions, I will be able to relay correct information to my fellow residents. First question, the report says provision will be made during the detailed design to reuse any suitable materials during construction, end quote. My understanding is that the existing concrete and steel bridge deck will be completely removed. That means that only the existing piers and the abutments would remain. So is it correct that they are the only parts that have the potential to be reused if they are suitable? Simple yes or no. Photo number 1, please. Could you just scroll down to the bottom of that? Right to the very bottom, keep going. Keep going. Farther, there we go. There's the conceptual drawing of what the bridge will look like. The second question has 2 parts. The report says RJ Burnside and Associates recommended that the bridge be replaced with a similar dimension that is structurally safe for recreational use, end quote. And you see recreational use there. In my many conversations with the Burnside staff, they indicated they were recommending that the replacement bridge would be a much lighter steel structure, therefore having much less bearing weight, instead of steel and concrete, and have a deck made of lighter composite materials instead of concrete and or asphalt. The deck will definitely not be made of wood. Are those details correct? Yes or no? This lighter structure is possible because the general term recreational use stated in the report in reality refers to only pedestrian and cycling activities being allowed on the bridge, including full encouragement of accessibility on the bridge for people with physical disabilities, in other words, wheelchair accessibility, and not for use by motorized vehicles of any kind, including no ATVs, no dirt bikes, and no golf carts. Is that correct? Simple yes or no. The third question has 2 parts. For information purposes for the residents in the RFP document, what was the deadline specified for when the bridge replacement design is to be completed? In the design phase, what opportunities will there be for the Port Robinson East residents to see the details of the final design before it is presented to council? After that, for information purposes, for the residents to know, assuming that there are no major glitches, what would be the target for completion of the new bridge and its grand opening? Spring, summer, fall, or winter in 2025? So I repeat, I'm simply asking council to have city staff provide clarification tonight of a few statements in the report by answering these very basic 6 questions. So I will be able to relay correct information to my fellow residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Devereaux, and I'll open the floor for any questions regarding the presentation. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Devereaux, and I'm going to put the report on the floor, and I'll ask, first of all, PWCS 84-2023 Consultant Award South Main Street Bridge Replacement Design. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor D'Angelo and Councillor Sentence. And now I'll turn it over to Jeff Holman to put the report on the floor.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, are we going back to reading the resolutions again?
Oh, yeah. Are we reading? Okay, there's the resolution. I had a mover and a seconder, and I'll open the floor for any questions for staff regarding this. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, are staff answering the questions tonight or in a report?
Well, when presenters come to council, they're not the ones that ask questions to staff. They present, and council ask questions to the presenter or can ask questions to staff.
Okay, can we get Ron's questions so I don't have to repeat them? I think he passed the list on to the clerk. Can we get those questions answered, please?
And I'll ask Jeff, is that doable tonight?
Through Mr. Mayor, yeah, to the extent we have the information at hand, some of the answers are not yes or no, but I'll ask the manager of engineering, who's in attendance tonight, whose staff will be managing the project, to answer the questions to the best of the ability, but there may be more information required, more specifics.
Thank you, Jeff, and I'll turn it over to Sean Dunsmore, our manager of engineering. Sean, go ahead.
Okay, I'm looking at the questions. The first question is, are the piers the only part that are suitable for reuse? Potentially no. We haven't really looked at it in detail. We might be able to reuse some of the deck in terms of using it for granular, for fill material and or aggregates in our concrete. We do that on a regular basis on all our projects. The second question is, the deck will definitely not be made of wood? Are those details correct? The answer is I don't know. We certainly wouldn't lean towards that. That's not our preference because it's too high maintenance for us. But no decisions have been made one way or the other on that. The next one was only for recreational use, so only wheelchairs and bikes and so forth. The answer is no, but not to include dirt bikes and golf carts either. What we would have to design our bridge. The Highway Bridge Design Code actually says that we have to design it in such a way that at the very least a maintenance vehicle can go over it so that we can maintain the bridge as we go. If we do make the deck out of asphalt, we have to be able to replace the asphalt on the deck. Third question is, when is it going to be completed? The RFP identified a date early spring of 2024 for the detailed design to be completed. To be honest, what we need to do is talk with our consultant and identify exactly what their dates are going to be. But we can certainly let everybody know once we work out those details. Will there be opportunities for people to see it? Yes, absolutely. We will have at least 2 more public information centers about what we're planning on constructing out there. And then as for the fourth question about when is the grand opening of the bridge, the answer to that is I don't know. It really depends on budget and council, but our intent would be to bring it to the 2025 budget. And it's a matter of it being approved, and then construction will happen after that. It'll probably take in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 months to construct. So I would say late 2025 if it's approved for the 2025 budget.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from the council here? Okay. Seeing none, I got a mover and a seconder for the PWCS 84 2023. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.2, we're going to move that back into the agenda, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. There was a delegation on item CLC 68 2023 with regards to speed limits. That's been withdrawn. So we will move right on to item 8.3, which is item CLC 70, and that's respecting the Tourism Advisory Committee's resolution on the visitor parkette for Bridget West.
Okay, and I'll, again, it's item CLC 70 2023, respecting Tourism Advisory Committee resolution respecting the establishment of a visitor parkette at Bridget West Ferry Dock. And again, I'll call on Ron Devereaux for a delegation respecting this. Welcome again, Ron.
Thank you again, Mayor Ugolini, councilors, and staff. My comments are based on my observations and experiences as a resident of Port Robinson East for 37 years. They're factual comments and constructive criticisms based on common sense, logical, rational, and objective critical thinking. In Port Robinson East, I am a volunteer community leader on many issues and a community resource person and the coordinator of the Port Robinson East Taxpayers Association and the director of its director of communications. The report recommendation is that council direct staff to prepare a report outlining rest area options to promote tourism at the Bridget West Ferry Dock. The West Side Ferry Dock and the East Side Ferry Dock are vitally equal parts of the same operation. They both exist for the same reason in that operation. They don't exist without each other. Or sorry, one doesn't exist without the other. Here to ask that tonight council also direct staff to prepare a report outlining options to undertake a total professional tourism and aesthetic upgrade and conscious maintenance program of the physical conditions at the Port Robinson East Ferry Dock, to include attention to the items that I'm now going to outline. On June 27th, 2022, last year, I sent an email to Mayor Ugolini, the CAO, and the Director of Operations that contained 6 points. Point number 1, this was in 2022. Right now, the conditions at the Port Robinson East Ferry Landing are deplorable. Weeds and grass are up to 4 feet high, obviously not cut at all in May and June of 2022. Paint needs refreshing on the dock's metal railings. The paint on the backs of the 2 large seaway signs attached to the north and south railings, respectively, of the ferry dock are weathered and the paint is peeling. To dress up these 2 blank spaces, a colorful welcoming sign, "Welcome to Port Robinson East of the City of Thorold," would be an appropriate addition, and also a weatherproof Niagara Region cycling map as published by NiagaraCyclingTourism.com with a "You Are Here" indicated on it. There are also some spray paint tagging some spray paint tagging that needs to be removed. The large litter barrel on the ferry deck obviously hasn't been emptied for several weeks. Attention is needed to regularly empty the garbage. Today, when I walked down the asphalt walkway from the end of Bridge Street East to the ferry dock, over a dozen pieces of litter were strewn along the path. Conclusions. First impressions are important. This is still in the letter that I wrote last year. First impressions are important. Any cycling tourist making this ferry crossing as a visitor to the Niagara area for the first time and disembarks on the Port Robinson east side would logically wonder if they're being dropped off into some kind of a depraved ghetto area. That is not something for the city of Thorold to be proud of. When I see cyclists in the Port Robinson East parking lot, I often engage them in conversation with a friendly, "Welcome to Port Robinson." Niagara is a cycling holiday destination for cyclists from far and wide that I have met from such places as far away as Australia, United Kingdom, New York City, Montreal, Calgary, Quebec, and many other parts of Canada and the USA. Often they mention that they are here on a cycling holiday for several days and even a week to 10 days. There's a lot of economic benefit there from these visitors. They deserve a better visual impression and a better visual welcome than what they currently get at the Port Robinson East Ferry Dock. That's the end of what I wrote last year. The city actions undertaken in 2022 were basically grass cutting and weed eating. So this year, from February 22nd to May 10th, I sent quite a few emails to the Thorold, with the information above, to the Thorold Economic Development Office as follows. Since the city of Thorold is taking back in-house the responsibility for the promotion of Thorold tourism, I hope you will be able to quickly address the chronic, systemic, ongoing deficiencies that exist in the physical conditions at the Port Robinson East Ferry Dock. A total professional tourism and aesthetic upgrade is needed there. Please add this correspondence to the agenda for the next Thorold Tourism Committee meeting on May 11th, 2023. In many of the numerous emails and Word documents I've regularly sent to the city of Thorold, I regularly state, I will gladly meet with city staff anytime, on-site in Port Robinson East, on any subject. Just give me 24 hours notice of the time you want to meet, but city staff doesn't contact me. Consider this analogy. In my humble opinion today, the Port Robinson East Ferry Dock and landing area looks like the rundown conditions around the Skid Row Hotel. A total professional tourism and aesthetic upgrade to much better conditions to transform it needs attention to details. Details that are not currently being seen and identified by city staff. But details can be provided through an on-site meeting, through the observations and experiences of a local resident who takes pride in his neighborhood. I am awaiting to be contacted. The Seaway Authority should be also included in that meeting. Mr. Mayor, how much time do I have left in the presentation?
3 minutes and 50 seconds.
Okay, slide number 1, please. For the rest of my presentation, I'm just going to ad-lib it, show you some photos of the current deteriorated conditions on the east side. These are current photos taken within the last week. This is an overview from the top of Bridge Street East. You can see there's a lot of growth there. Some of it is natural on the banks, but although there has been weed eating and grass cutting, there are still areas down on the lower level that require more attention. Slide number 2, please. This, I mentioned the back of the Seaway signs being deteriorated and peeling paint. There's one example. Beside the sign to the left, slide number 3, is the garbage bin that's half full. Hasn't been emptied recently, and you'll see right above it, there's also on both sides of the ferry, north and south, there's these empty white signs that have just been painted over that could potentially carry some message. Next photo, please. I mentioned spray paint photo tagging. Spray paint tagging in this photo. There's more than one example. Next, please. You'll see there are some concrete barriers called Jersey barriers that have been tagged. As you can see, they were painted over with gray paint, but the painting didn't cover the whole of the concrete, which would look better than just kind of haphazardly slapping it on. The red and white band across the top is a reflective band, and some of the spray painting in black you can see has been covered up, but still it's visible. So painting the whole barrier, spending a little bit to put a new red and white reflective on that, to me, is more than worthy. Next, please. The Jersey barriers that you saw are placed by the Seaway, the Seaway Authority. That's why I suggested they should be part of a meeting. There's the Seaway Road, which the ferry landing is just to the left of this picture. This is right on the mid-level above it, and you can see there's a gate here, but the gate is in poor condition, aesthetically rusted, bent sign, and unfortunately the barriers that are put up are easily gone around by the dirt bikes and ATVs. Next, please.
50 more seconds.
Even though there's pedestrian crossing signs, no motorized vehicles allowed, they still operate up and down the canal. Next, please. They get down, because they're going around the Jersey barriers at these concrete blocks. You can see the yellow, we're right on them, standing on the dock, and you can see that on the left, lower left corner, there's mud, gravel that ATVs, dirt bikes constantly put onto the dock that we should have regular sweeping at minimum. Next, please. Now we're up on top. This sign, I mentioned the sign of the Niagara cycling route. This is a picture of a sign that used to be at the ferry dock, which deteriorated at least 5 years ago, has never been replaced. This is a nice addition to tourism promotion.
Well, that should wrap up, please.
Next,
Ron.
please. Yeah, it's got a couple left there.
Yes.
This is the display area at the top, at the end of Bridge Street, above the ferry landing. The sign that you just saw that was deteriorated 5 years ago, you still see on these deteriorated wooden slabs that form the display, there's still evidence that the sign was attached by those white plastic pieces that are still screwed into the wood. Next, please. The taping pieces of paper with information on them over top of a professional sign is not classy, and there should be proper signage. I'm recommending there should be a proper complete reevaluation of the display area, and something that would be more appropriate and more classy.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
I don't have a question, but I have a motion that I'd like to put on the floor if there's no questions.
Any further questions for Mr. Devereaux? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment.
No, questions, please,
Oh, okay. No, thank you.
because there's reports going to go on the floor. Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Devereaux, for your presentation. And
Thank
is
you.
this motion you have related to the report?
Well, the report's just a motion. Like, are we having a report? Am I missing something?
No, I mean, this has come from the tourism, yeah.
Yeah,
You want
I
to
would-
deal
I
with
would-
that first, and then you can bring your motion?
Yeah, well, Mr. Mayor, that's where I was gonna amend the motion that the Tourism Committee put on there. It's clear Mr. Devereaux has pointed out some areas of improvement in both specifically on the east side. So my amendment to the motion was just gonna read that council directs staff to prepare a report outlining rest area options to promote tourism at the Bridget West Ferry Dock and also the East Ferry Dock. And that staff bring this back. I'm looking at our budget deliberations, so they have time to prepare this. Obviously, the ferry's not running right now, so there's no urgency in getting everything done. I'd rather have a proper plan in place for both sides, seeing what options are available. The partners that we can partner with, the Seaway, the region was left out. They're also a tourism partner. I think we need to explore what they can do. So I think there's a bunch of items that need to be looked at here, and I think, proposing to bring it back for budget would probably be the best situation, because that'll put us in a good position next spring to look at some of these. Because some of the items might be, fairly ticketed in terms of, it may be a progression of 1 or 2 years that we get items done. You can't do everything at once all the time, and we're gonna have other budget pressures. So I'd like to see staff work on that, but also work with the tourism committee, so if they have some design schematics prior to the budget, bring it to the committee, see what their thoughts are, and sort of move the process along. So I see this as working collaboratively with the tourism committee and with staff for council's information to come forward at a future date.
So, the original, and then you see the addition there with the Bridget West and East, and that report would come to budget, okay? Can I get a second, or did you want to second that, Councillor Sentence? Anyone would like to speak to that? Go ahead, Councillor DeRoe.
Yeah, I agree with Councilor D'Angelo. I take my kids there quite frequently in the summer, and it's an eyesore. I've met people from all over the world there, and their impression of that area in Thorold is not good. So we need to do something, even if we could just start off, and like you said, we got to get it in the budget. There's going to be a lot of needs this year, but we need to get it in the budget, even if we can start with the cosmetics next spring, early spring, and get that done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, then all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Now we're into the public meetings, correct? Okay. Statutory public meetings, there's 2 under the Planning Act. The first one, I'll call to order the public meeting being held pursuant to the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act as amended, respecting the zoning bylaw amendment for Barker Place, Block 26, Barker Parkway. Applicant presentation. I'll call on Craig Rowe, Senior Planner, Upper Canada Consultants, for the applicant presentation, respecting the applicants for draft plan, vacant land condominium, and zoning bylaw amendment for Barker Place. After the presentation, we'll take questions. So I'll call on Craig, and welcome, Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, nice to be here back in Thorold this evening. We have a presentation that we submitted, so I just asked if the clerk could bring that up on screen for us.
This thing shuts down. 1 minute. Try Go ahead.
Alrighty, so thanks again. My name's Craig Rowe. I'm a senior planner with Upper. I'm pinch hitting for one of my colleagues tonight who's the main planner on this, but I'm very familiar with the file and happy to give you a brief overview of what the application is all about and answer any questions that you may have. Next slide, please. Great. So the subject lands that are forming these two applications are located within Rolling Meadows neighborhood. So geographically, they're situated north of Uppers Lane. They're on the east side of Barker Parkway, and you can kind of see that the diagonal line coming in the Trans-Canada Pipeline. We'll touch on that a little bit later on, but just the geographic bearings of where this is. So north of Highway 20, east of Highway 58. If we could just click to the next slide, please. We'll look at the site in a little bit more detail. So where the site is situated currently, it's across from some existing townhouse development to the west. There's some blocks for future townhouse development on Elvira Way due north of the subject lands, as well as some singles in there and some other small singles that are located across the road as well. The land's located south of the Trans-Canada Pipeline, which is the angled line portion of our property. Those are zoned and designated for future development going forward. Next slide, please. So I've provided here is a bit of a quick sheet summarizing some key information to know about the property. So the legal description is Block 26 of Plan 59M512. So this registered plan subdivision was, I believe it was registered about a year ago through some additional Rolling Meadows subdivision plans that have come forward. And this block was created for multiple residential development. It measures about 4.8 hectares in size, or just over an acre. It's got 61 meters of frontage out along the east side of Barker Parkway, and its ownership is 1346704 Ontario Inc., also known as Markin Homes, which develops all throughout the Niagara region. Currently, the lands are vacant. It's not being used for anything actively. From a planning perspective, we're subject to the provincial policy statement and the growth plan in this area. So we are within the settlement area, and we're also within the designated greenfield area, which comes with specific growth targets. And Niagara's new official plan, the 22 official plan, is within Thorold urban area, also designated as greenfield area. And then within the city's official plan, it forms part of the Rolling Meadows neighborhood secondary plan. It has a residential designation, which allows for a whole variety of different residential uses, and it has the greenfield overlay. Like many of the recent residential developments that have been brought before the city of Thorold in the past couple of years, we're aware that most of the residential zoning provisions are currently under appeal. So we're dealing with two zoning bylaws on this zoning application that's before you tonight. So under the 2140-97 bylaw, the one that's actually in effect, it's got a development D zone, and then under the new bylaw, which remains our appeal, future development. Basically, these zones are in place and they require a zoning amendment to bring any sort of development forward. And the intention is to give this council an opportunity to review the development applications, provide comments, and make sure that we get it right on the ground. So the proposed use for this is going to be a residential condominium consisting of 19 block townhouse units. And this is kind of similar to the developments that you might remember recently, DQ Terrace, Block 40 and 41, 205 St. David's Road a little bit further down in the Richmond condo. These are all vacant land condos emulating block townhouse development. So our development densities are 39.42 units per hectare, which is a good kind of low-medium density range. And then we exceed the minimum greenfield density target prescribed by the province, region, and city of 50 jobs and people per hectare. We're at 90.6 based on our lot area. Next slide, please. So the two applications that are before you, the first one is a draft plan of vacant land condominium. So similar to a subdivision, but what it does through a vacant land condominium is it creates tracts of lands that contain a dwelling unit and a rear amenity yard that the unit owner would own, and then some area out to the front, and then they have exclusive use over their driveway. The common elements are the areas that form around those units of land and typically contain our servicing, the roadway, visitor parking, and all of our drainage around the perimeter of the site. So our zoning bylaw that we've submitted, we're proposing amendments to two bylaws just in case as we're going through the process. If the appeal gets resolved, we have them both on deck ready to go and council has the right information in front of them. Under the first zoning bylaw, and I'll go through these in a little bit more detail, we're doing that required zoning amendment to go from development D under the current bylaw to residential third density zone, which is most appropriate for a condominium development. We're looking to reduce the minimum lot area per unit to accommodate the density. We need to modify the front yard provisions that don't contemplate the same provisions that the setbacks in the new zoning bylaw have for block townhouses, and then modifying our landscape requirement to a full lot area requirement rather than per unit. Under the new zoning bylaw, a similar change from future development to residential 3 zone. We're going to increase the amount of units permitted in a row from 6 to 7, reduce the minimum condominium unit area required to increase the density, and then we have some small provisions related to encroachments and driveway width. These provisions are in full force and effect, so if the amendment carried forward for a building permit, for example, is to 21-4097, it would also carry those provisions from 60-2019 to modify the general provisions. Next slide, please. So this is just an image showing the draft plan of vacant land condominium. As you can see here, the lines extend along the demising walls between the condominium units. There's generally a perimeter about 1.5 in larger areas that go all around this, and that would be for drainage, fencing, common element. All of our services will be located within the private road and the boulevard area, and then our visitor parking is in the common element. You'll see a dash line representing the TransCanada pipeline setback. So this isn't indicative of actually where the pipeline is, but there is a required setback requirement, and we're hoping to get a little bit more feedback as they comment on this application to see what sort of elements that we can put in that setback. We can't put anything required under zoning or permanent structurally, but we might have some flexibility in terms of some extra parking or some additional landscaping, trees, things that could go in that area. Next slide. So I provided 2 cropped images of the site plan that we submitted with our applications. And what I intend to do is just kind of give you a quick overview of the zoning that we're asking for. So this first bylaw that we're looking at, this is bylaw 214097. So this is the current zoning bylaw that's in full force and effect. So under this zoning bylaw, there's a few things that we're seeking to do. On the basis, which isn't shown in plan, is we're looking to go down in minimum dwelling unit for a block townhouse from 270 square meters to 135 square meters per unit, and that contemplates the size of the unit that we're proposing. With regards to the front yard setback, the current zoning bylaw doesn't provide any detailed provisions for setbacks from a private road. So right now we have a 6-meter setback in the legal front yard, which is Barker Parkway. Under your new zoning, which is under appeal, it allows a side wall of a dwelling to be 3 meters away from that front lot line. That's what we're proposing through this application, and we don't need a similar provision through the other bylaw. What we're proposing through this is to reduce it down along Barker Parkway to bring the built form a little closer to the road and help us work with the constraints of the TransCanada pipeline. We're also adding some additional provisions in there for a 4.5 meter setback to the front face of the dwelling and then 6 meter setback to the garage. This will provide enough room for illegal parking space and puts the dwelling closer to the road and the garage setback further, which is better urban design. Some of the landscape requirements that we have under the current bylaw would require 25% of the ownership unit to be landscaped, which is a little bit aggressive and doesn't really end up with us having a lot of room to develop this site. So using the same methodology that's in the new zoning that remains under appeal, we're requesting that the zoning provision be increased from 25% per unit to 35% for the total lot area, and this is consistent with the zoning that's under appeal. The encroachments that are shown, those are the bubbles kind of on the outside of the screen that you see. The end units within this development have stairs that lead down into the basement, so we need some relief from encroachment there. We've also asked for a little bit greater encroachment for the covered decks that are proposed in the functional rear yards. And this is to provide enough room that you could get a table and chairs, barbecue, things of that nature out there to actually have it as a little bit more functional area rather than just a very narrow area just to kind of dust your shoes off before you go in the house. We want to make sure that was as functional as possible. Next slide, please. So this is the zoning bylaw, which is currently remaining under appeal right now. Some things that we're requesting in this is that there is a prohibition on any greater than 6 townhouse units in a row. Block C that you can see there has 7. The reason we've done this is because the units run out of space with that TransCanada setback. So this allows them to put together. The built form is consistent. We don't need any breaks in there from a drainage or grading perspective. So we feel it's okay there to maximize the development potential of the site. We've asked for a reduction in the minimum condominium unit area. So that would be the ownership unit itself from 160 square meters to 135 square meters for an interior unit and from 200 square meters to 143 square meters for any end units. And also what we've covered off in here are those encroachments which are still shown on the outside of that diagram that you have before you. Next slide. These are some preliminary elevations that have been prepared by our client for this development. This shows a typical block of 6 townhouses together. They're about 8.8 meters tall to the roof. And then the sides that you see, Unit 1 and 19, are what would be expected. You would see this from Barker Parkway using a mix of brick and stone and vinyl cladding. This will all be flushed out in a little bit greater detail as we go through the site plan approval process. Next slide, please. With regards to our public and agency comments, we haven't received anything yet. It's our understanding that some of these comments are, I believe they might have been due today, and that we should receive them later this week or early next week, and we'll make any actions we need to respond to those. And then our last slide here, just click it over. Our next steps, review of public agency council comments that we hear this evening. Council's consideration of these applications will come at a future meeting. Based on the Planning Act timelines, this would happen before mid-November to stay within the 90-day range that's required. If the zoning and the draft plan are approved by council, we then need to go forward into detailed engineering architecture and clear our draft plan conditions, and then we'll also be going through the site plan approval application process to get all the detailed design elements, landscape lighting, everything to that effect. So that's my presentation. I would just ask that if the clerk could just leave the next slide up, I can use it to kind of point at the plan if there's any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig. And now I'll open the floor for questions. Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple questions to the presenter through you. In regards, I know the diagram up there doesn't really depict it, but is there going to be a sidewalk that's going to be put on each side or one side of the condominium?
Through Mr. Mayor to the question, this design that was put forward hasn't contemplated a sidewalk. We are aware of some of the recent approvals that City Council has had requesting sidewalks. Given the constraints on this site and the fact that we don't have a very deep roadway in, we feel that this might be one of those circumstances where a sidewalk may not be warranted. If we were to provide it, it would require our client to redesign their units. We'd be taking a 1.5 meter curb face sidewalk along there, and then we'd have to effectively push everything back behind that. So if we did do a sidewalk, my suggestion would be for one side only. That way that we can maximize that room and we don't lose too much of the development envelope because of the constraints with the TransCanada pipeline that we deal with.
Well, I definitely believe a sidewalk is necessary, so at minimum, at least one side, which is consistent with some other areas, so I think that needs to be looked at. The second question I had is, when I read this, it said 2 parking spots. I see the 2 parking spots up there, but you have 19 homes and only 2 visitor parking spots. Is there a lottery of who gets to come and visit? Because where are the other cars going to park?
Through Mr. Mayor to the question, yes. So the zoning requirement for parking is 2 per unit, which we've designed so we can accommodate 2 legal spots per unit, 1 in the garage, 1 in the driveway. There are the 2 visitor parking spaces which are shown next to unit 13, I believe there. One of the challenges that we have with this site is that we're not quite sure about what TransCanada will permit within this area. Geometrically, we do have some additional room where we could likely get some additional visitor parking in there, but we didn't want to go forward and propose that within an area that they have control over. We're hopeful that as we receive the comments from TransCanada, there might be some additional flexibility in there where we can add some additional visitor parking into this to supplement what's required for each home.
Okay, I think that has to be investigated, but there's also, when I look at it, there seems like there's a hump there, and where the 2 spots are, it looks like you could put some potentially more parking spots. Because if you don't have more parking spots with this plan, all you're doing is, I don't know the street name that's across the street there, but they're gonna have the parking problem on their street, because anytime there's a visitor, that's where they're gonna go. Because the units already are scaled down in size from, I think you said, to 135, is that correct? The inside unit, the interior units?
Through Mr. Chair, yes. So that's the condominium ownership area, so that
Yeah, so you're already squeezing a lot of homes into that area there, and anyone that lives in this area needs a vehicle. There's nothing that they can walk to, that there's no grocery store, there's no convenience store, nothing that's at this present time walkable, so you're gonna have to need a vehicle. So those are the 2 items I see right off the bat. If you can work with the TransCanada pipeline and see if you can move some parking or additional parking, I think that would alleviate a problem that will be occurring in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor D'Angelo. Are there any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Just to stay on the TransCanada pipeline theme, I wanted to ask, do you have to notify purchasers that they'll be backing on to the TransCanada pipeline? Is that an issue?
Through Mr. Chair, my understanding of typical practice is that the city would receive comments from TransCanada with the standard warning clause they want to see applied to the title of all the homes.
And is it also typical to extend that private roadway right through the pipeline setback? It seems like the pipeline setback is there to have a no man's zone.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Through Mr. Chair, yes, we've had to extend the T to meet the geometric requirements of Niagara Region for their waste collection vehicle, and also to make sure that they're eligible for public waste collection. So if we weren't to provide that full extent, we're hoping that the case for regional waste collection, public waste collection for the development would allow some extension of the asphalt area into that setback to allow for a proper turnaround. But again, we're waiting for their comments to see if they'll support it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And I also support Councillor D'Angelo's recommendation or strong suggestion that sidewalks be installed at least on one side. We do want our neighborhoods to be kept safe. And lastly, if you could just point out in the drawing, if you might, or explain to me, I know you have a minimum landscaped area in the development, and I believe you're asking for even less. And again, it comes down to number of units that the developer would be building. It may remove a unit, I understand that. But it's also important that we have our green space as well. So where are we exactly looking at? Because I'm having a hard time seeing where any landscaping could go. Are you counting the buffer zone of the TransCanada pipeline?
Through Mr. Mayor to the question, to confirm, so under the current zoning bylaw, we need to give 25% of that lined block area of ownership as landscaping, which is very significant, doesn't result in a very functional footprint. So in lieu of that, what we've suggested is to increase the overall landscape requirement for the site consistent with your new zoning bylaw. So for sites like this under bylaw 60/2019, we need a minimum of 30% for the entirety of the lot. We're at 39.63%, so we do exceed. What we're asking for is more functional, allows for the build out per unit so that we don't have an issue with the zoning of the ownership unit, and we still achieve those same means and go above and beyond what was expected.
So the 33% that you're talking about, is that triangle to the, what would that be? That would be the northeast, I imagine, and the pipeline setback as well? Is that what you're counting?
Through Mr. Chair to the question, landscape open space calculated for development blocks like this includes any landscaped areas, sidewalks, anything that's not a building or a driveway. That's how it's calculated under the definition of the bylaw.
Okay, but does that include the road? It doesn't include the road, right?
Through Mr. Chair, no, it would not include the road.
Yeah, okay. Well, I hope that we do get to see some more landscaped area in this small section. So those are two strong suggestions that I hope the developer hears and may make adjustments for.
Yep,
Thank
I'll
you.
be happy to take those back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got Councillor Sentence and then Councillor Longo. Go ahead, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, through you, I agree with the parking, landscaping, and the and everything else Councillor D'Angelo said. With my suggestion, I know you're early in this stages, is we've had it before with other developers that came back and said, you know, are you set on 19? You know, I understand the business model, but are you set on 19 where maybe 18 gives you the space to do everything that can be done? And again, I'm saying this now because you're early in the stage, but it's very important to us, these things, as you've probably seen with other presentations. So again, I know the business model, but maybe something to think about that could alleviate all these problems. I don't know if that does it one, but maybe redesigns it kind of where you have the space to do everything.
Yeah, thank you for the comment through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think that's a good approach, and I'll be happy to take that back to our clients and take a look at it. We're certainly not dealing with, you know, being close to the line of density or anything like that. You know, just anecdotally, kind of the the trouble sometimes with condos is because they all rely on all their own private infrastructure and everything, you do need a base amount of units to make it feasible in case you do have a failure or something in there. But I think some of the things that have been pointed out by members of council tonight, some of the geometry on the site, there might be some opportunity to flush those things out.
Councilor Longo, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter. Most of my questions, concerns have been voiced already, but I do have a question. Specifically, I'm looking at the diagram, Block B, Unit 12. You've got a diagonal line of the setback from the Trans-Canada Pipeline running right through that property. How are you going to overcome that?
Through Mr. Chair, so the house is fully contained within the unit. The diagonal line that you see is the ownership unit on the ground. So structurally, the building preliminarily is placed entirely within that unit with some square geometry to it. It's not an angular wall or anything like that.
But part of the driveway looks to me to be on Trans-Canada setback. Are you going to try to deal with them to resolve this?
Yes, through Mr. Mayor, yes, we need to see their feedback and see what will be acceptable to them. Again, it's a very different type of constraint that we have to deal on this site. But as I've noted, the setback itself isn't in relation. There are no actual pipes themselves, to our knowledge, underneath the subject lands.
Any further questions? Go ahead, Councilor Dendavides.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to agree with my councilors. I do when driving around this area, there's a lot of young kids, and especially these type of houses that are being put up. Kids are around everywhere. I think sidewalks are so important. I was out there last week, and I can't believe how many kids are out there. So if you can scale it down, like Councilor Senton said, or add sidewalks, I think it's a must.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, Craig, thank you for your presentation. I think it was loud and clear. I can tell you that this council on all developments has been very advocate of sidewalks and adequate parking. So I take those comments back. They're important to this council.
Absolutely. We'll take them back and work with Tara and more new plan and see if we can get most of these concerns resolved, if not all of them.
Thank you. Okay, registered speakers. Are there any registered speakers? At this time, is there anyone online or present in the chamber who wishes to speak on the applications? Is there anyone online?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is no one online.
Okay. At this time, is there anyone present online or in the chamber who wishes to speak to the application? No? I'll say it one more time. At this time, is there anyone online or present in the chamber who wishes to speak on the applications? The answer is no. Okay, so planning report. DS 51 2023. The report DS 51 2023 is only presented to council and public for information purposes. It is currently open for questions and/or comment from members of City Council. Please note all comments will be captured by City staff and incorporated into the final report, which will be brought forward to Council, to a future Council meeting for consideration. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the report, please? Councillor DeRose, seconder Councillor DeAngela. And is there any further questions or comments regarding the report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Adjournment of the public meeting. This fulfills the requirements of the Planning Act pursuant to Section 34. The public meeting portion of these applications is now adjourned. And now we'll move into the second statutory public meeting under the Planning Act. I'll call to order public meeting being held pursuant to the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act as amended, respecting the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for 1511 Cottameyer Road. Applicant presentation. I'll call on representatives from Armstrong Planning for the applicant presentation respecting the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for Legacy Area 4, Cottameyer Road. And I'll ask the presenter to give us his full name, and you're with Armstrong, and your name is?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Alexander Hardy. I'm with Armstrong Planning.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we have a presentation.
Yeah, we'll just bring it up for you. Can you just make sure your mic is turned on, little green button?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members of council. Again, my name is Alexander Hardy. I'm here on behalf of the client Empire Communities for as we propose for a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision application at 1511 Cottameyer Road. We'll go for the next slide. Next slide. And also with me in the audience, my colleague Tamine from Armstrong Planning, and from Empire Communities, we have Thanasi and Flavia. Also on the screen, we have a group of experts to help put together this zoning bylaw amendment application and plan of subdivision application. Again, the purpose of this application are proposals for detached homes, townhouses, and rear lane townhouses on the subject lands. We'll go on the next slide. Thank you. So the subject site is off of the Highway 406 in the Port Robinson West neighborhood. If you're familiar with the area, Empire has developments in the surrounding area, particularly to the south. There's an existing community. To the south east, there's a construction for new homes, and generally in the surrounding areas, low density residential and agricultural and natural uses. Particularly right on and immediately east of the site, there's a mechanic shop, and on the site itself, it's about seven hectares. There's on the north, there's a Cottameyer, the Singer's Drain complex, and there's a significant woodlot on the site. And we'll go for the next slide. So again, with Empire, this is the project overlaid onto the Port Robinson secondary plan, which is approved. So we have Area 1's already constructed in the south. To the southeast, we have Area 2 that's currently under construction. Area 3 in the northeast is in the early works during pre-construction, and Area 4 is currently just vacant. In terms of policy, we currently conform with the proposal conforms with the Planning Act, Provincial Policy Statement, Growth Plan, the Regional Official Plan, and the City of Thorold Official Plan, and the Secondary Plan has been approved. And we're asking through zoning, we're currently zoned as a future development, and the proposed zoning better aligns with the current in place local policies and provincial policies. Provincially, in the growth plan, we're designated within a greenfield area. We are not in the green belt, and again, the density requirements by the province is 50 residents and jobs combined per hectare. Next slide. Thank you. So under the approved Port Robinson West secondary plan, the subject site outlined. The north portions of the lands are designated as low-density residential. The south portions are designated as medium-density residential, and the western portions are designated as environmental protection too. Next slide.
Our zoning bylaw, so again, the secondary plan has already been approved, and our zoning bylaw proposal aligned here conforms with the existing approved policies. Our proposal will protect 52% of the lands for environmental uses, as well, we are in total, collectively, we're proposing approximately 77 units in the form of detached in the north and central part of the subject lands. In the southern section of the lands, we're proposing townhouses and rear lane townhouses. Our proposal is also consistent with provincial and local policies, where we will meet about 56 persons per hectare, which beats the requirement of at least 50 persons and jobs per hectare. The next slide, just to illustrate how the residential uses will look like. We have our typical detached home with the minimum lot frontage. It would have about 9 meters. We have in the south the townhouses where the front door and garage would be a part of the front facade, and the townhouses will have a backyard. And rear lane townhouses will have 2 functional facades. One facade with just a front door, and then another functional facade fronting onto a laneway, which will also contain a functional front door and a garage. Just to recap our timeline, we've been in consultation with staff and regional agencies, Conservation Authority, as early as October 2022. And we officially went for a zoning bylaw amendment this past July. Going forward, we hope to continue to work with our agencies, public stakeholders, council, and towards and hope to shape a plan that will be going in front of council for a final council decision. Just some positive impacts with this proposal. There will be association of urbanizing different corridors, including we've already seen some urbanization with earlier phases on Commuir and Port Robinson Road, and we'll continue to urbanize sections of Commuir Road that will front onto the subject site. We'll also have provide a diverse range of housing options and provide extra housing stock in the community. We'll be preserving environmental areas, including wetlands, and we'll be continued working with staff in the city to delivering parks in areas 1, 2, and 3. So, I know we have, so far, staff made me aware that we have one question submitted from a local resident, I believe adjacent east of the site. Resident asked, had a concern about fencing the perimeter between our site and their site, as they're concerned about construction impacts and long-term if there will be a fence with their site. And to respond to that, we will be complying with construction regulations, and we'll have an erosion and debris protection fence during construction. And long-term permanent fencing can be sought at. We can work with the local residents to make sure their appropriate fencing's in place.
Thank you. And now I'm going to open the floor. You're done your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, thank you, Council.
And Alex, I'll open the floor for questions to Alexander. Are there questions from council here? Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few questions as I was looking through here. Can you go back to page 7 of your presentation? I just want to take a quick look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out there is the commercial component of the subdivision. So it's to the southern parts of the development. So that's where all the commercial activity will be, from my understanding.
Sorry, the southern portion of the development will have townhomes and rear lane townhomes.
No, I'm talking about the whole, like all four areas. I'm looking at the commercial component. So if I'm reading them, I just want to make sure I'm reading the map correctly. It's where it says right next to under construction in area 1. That's where you're going to have commercial activity?
Under this plan, correct. Right now, the red area is the sales center.
Okay.
The long term, that definitely is a possibility.
So hopefully you'll have some sort of restaurant, small convenience store, that sort of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, the reason I ask that is it sort of ties into the whole plan. So in area 4, and again, I'm going to bring up sidewalks. You talked about the urbanization of Kopmeyer Road for that section. Will there be a sidewalk on Kopmeyer Road?
Yes, through, we can work with staff to ensure safe pedestrian passage. Also, we're proposing at least one intersection onto Kopmeyer Road, and for safety, we will ensure a sidewalk connection to that.
Okay, yeah, I think it's very important that Kopmeyer Road has sidewalks because that's going to be the major commercial or major arterial road of getting to the commercial activity. So if you want to go to the local store or restaurant or whatever and you're going to walk, then you want to walk down the main, I call it the main drag there. So I think that's very critical that you look at sidewalks there. And my apologies, because on the map here, it's hard to tell if sidewalks are planned or not because it's just a schematic. But I just want to make sure those points are brought across, so then when you go back to do the final drawings, that it actually gets incorporated.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, I'll say at least internally in the site where there'll be at least one sidewalk provided on each street.
Okay, excellent. That takes care of my sidewalks. We used to be a city built on paper, now we're going to be a city with a sidewalk on every street. That's my goal. But the next question I had, it revolves, and the second issue is parking. Now, again, I can't see the exact sizes of the townhomes here, but with the intersections of the roads and stuff, is there going to be ample parking for visitors on the street? Because there's going to be some on-street parking, again, because you have all these homes coming there. There's no amenities walkable to date, so people are going to have to drive to get to that location. Without the measurements there, I can't tell. Is there going to be ample parking? That's question 1. And number 2 is, can there be opportunities, I know where the bend is, to put some additional parking spots in that area there to, maybe if you get a close-up, I don't know what page that was on, but yeah, I'm done with number 7. Yeah, I was looking for something that
Perhaps
broke
the
down.
zoning bylaw amendment page, this one?
Yeah, see the little green area that has 0S1? I don't know if there's any opportunity to work with some additional parking there if there's not enough street parking. I've seen it on other roads where they put parking in different spots, that not necessarily in front of a house. Because with the driveways, with the stop sign, with the intersection allotment that you have to leave, you're not going to be left with a lot of parking there. So I think it's very critical that you try to look at how you can get some additional parking spots into that street to satisfy the neighborhood. So I'll leave that up to you. If you want to answer that question, you can.
Happy to answer. Under the zoning bylaw amendment, we're not adjusting the zoning bylaw for requiring additional parking spaces. Also, we have a transportation impact study, which shows that we will have sufficient parking spaces. I'm happy to follow up as well with the transportation consultant. As far as having parking in the open space, the light green, as you picture in that image, the intent is to have it as a certain open space, but if it is through the intent of the zoning bylaw and staff to change that type of zone or to allow that parking use within that zone, certainly something we're open to look at.
I just wanted to make sure you look at it prior to get it all final designs, just so that there might be an opportunity to put 1 or 2 parking spots there and help alleviate some of the cars that are parked on the road eventually.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that answers my questions at this time.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions? Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm going to come back to that light green spot that Councillor D'Angelo pointed to. I saw that on your demonstration plan. That's between lots 6 and 7. and you call that park open space. So I assume that would not be able to be transformed into parking. My preference would be that a playground gets built there. Where are the kids going to play in this section, right? There isn't anything for them. And I know you spoke earlier of the playgrounds in sections 1, 2, and 3, but this is a completely independent section, and any children who wish to go play in a park at present are going to be crossing some busy streets. So I'd really like to see something closer to home. You wrote that it's proposed to be dedicated to the city. How does that work? That's in your planning parcel.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. Again, yeah, the overall intent of the open space zone, number one, is to it's not to go to market, and rather to sever and give the parcel to the city to use as needed. It could be used just as grass space, or we could explore recreational if there's a sufficient space as possible in that zone. But as I mentioned, my last question to the councillor, we'd have to change the zone to accommodate parking, but the intent is for open space zone. Also, most of the site will be protected for natural uses. And the intent in terms of serving the broader community is that the parks in areas 1, 2, and 3 will provide that purpose, along with adjacent developments on this northwest corner of Commuer Road and Port Robinson Road in the future. That's the overall intent.
Okay, but you can understand my concern when I'm talking about children having to walk to these various playgrounds, that it wouldn't be very safe. And I'd really like to see something within this quadrant to offer to the kids to play in. So I hope you'll take that back as well.
Absolutely.
A couple of other points. I read your environmental impact statement, and I do want to applaud your company's vision for all the protection that they're going to be taking around Singer's Drain, the restoration of the hardwood. That's excellent to see. Also, I understand you're building a barrier to the north end where the forest will be to also ensure that that stays well protected from abuse. So thank you for that. I do want to look at the, I think we can see it right here. Yeah, the laneway in between the two townhouses. I believe that must only be a one-way laneway. Is that correct?
It will be a two-way laneway, 10 meters wide.
And that's going to be sufficient enough for 2 cars?
According to our transportation report, that should be sufficient. Again, I'm happy to also return personally with the transportation consultant to answer this question.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, I just want to mention, and I know in your planning report, you reference the provincial policy statement a lot, you reference Thorold's official plan a lot, and some of the key points that you yourselves put into your report are very significant and important, and I just want to bring this up. Empire Legacy owns these 4 sections of housing. One's complete, 2's well underway, the 3rd one's starting, and this is the 4th one. It's a lot of homes. I don't know, do you know by any chance how many units we're talking?
For this,
No, for the entire.
I don't have an exact figure. I have the Empire team
Okay,
with
but
me.
we could probably say safely around 5,000 units? 1,500 units in all 4 quadrants?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you very much for that. The reason I'm mentioning it is because in the documents that you quoted, like the provincial policy statement, Section B, for example, it talks about healthy, livable, safe communities, including affordable housing, housing for seniors, employment, industrial and commercial, institutional long-term care. We see none of this, right? I applaud you for building homes. It's great. But we're missing the boat on a lot of the needs of our communities by simply building to one side of the scale. And I hope you can take that back too. I mean, it's in our Thorold official plan as well, to continue to provide housing that is affordable and encourages diversity to accommodate the broadest housing needs. We kind of focus on one housing need here. So again, if you could take it back to the drawing board and think about that, with so much development, it would have been nice to have seen something that was accommodating to other needs in our communities. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Alexander, for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council.
Registered speakers, and you can see in your notes that there was a written submission which was referred to during Alexander's presentation. It's in your agenda. And also, at this time, is there anyone online or present in the chamber who wishes to speak on the applications? Is there anyone online or present in the chamber?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is no one online.
Okay, I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone online or present in the chamber who wishes to speak to the application? Seeing none. Planning Report DS 52 2023. Report DS 52 2023 is only presented to council and the public for information purposes. It is currently open for questions and/or comment from members of City Council. Please note, all comments will be captured by City staff and incorporated into the final report, which will be brought forward to a future council meeting for consideration. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the report? Councillor DeRose and Councillor Longo. Are there any comments or questions regarding the report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Adjournment of the public meeting. This fulfills the requirement of the Planning Act pursuant to Section 34. The public meeting portion of these applications are now adjourned. Now we'll move back into our regular agenda, and up first are items for consent. Can I get a mover and seconder for items of consent, and then I'll ask if we want to take them. I got Councillor Decker and Councillor DeRose. Do any councillors want to lift any consent items 13.1, 13.2, 13.4 through 13.13, and 13.15 through 13.18? Please raise your hand. Go ahead, Councillor. You can go first, Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. 13.16 and 13.17, please.
Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
I have 13.4.
Okay.
You said 16 and 17 have been lifted.
Yep, they've been lifted.
I have 13.18
Yeah.
and 13.9.
13.9. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 13.7, please.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So I had a mover and a seconder. We're going to move 13.1, 13.2, 13.5, 13.6, 13.8, 13.10, 13.11, 13.12, 13.13, and 13.15. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So now we'll start with the polled reports. Up first, 13.4, CLKC 71-2023, Tourism Advisory Committee Resolution respecting refurbishment of welcome of our historic downtown mural. And did you pull this one, Councillor D'Angelo?
Yes, I did. I just got a quick comment, and, well, first of all, I want to say thanks for the committee of doing this. I've been trying to work on this the last 3 years. That sign's been in poor shape for a very long time. And when people take pictures, they either take the bottom half or the top half, but that's been deteriorating. But I think that's great that we're looking at that and looking at refurbishing, but I think along that, we got to come up with a policy. If we start putting these murals on buildings, who's responsible for the maintenance of them? It's not a city responsibility because it's on private property, but if we are going to take some ownership and making sure these murals look good, because there's other ones that have been put up in the past, and if they're not taken care of, it's a bad reflection on the community. So I think along the line of looking at how we're going to refurbish this, options, but looking at some sort of policy so that if another one goes up on the side of a building, that it's clear who the ownership is and who's the maintenance of it. And if it's not maintained in a reasonable fashion, that someone has to do it, not always the city. You know, we have the deep pockets, but the pockets are starting to run low sometimes, and we got to make sure that
So you
these
want-
murals look good. So I think staff has, to, while looking at the options of refurbishing, looking at some sort of policy that can be applied for moving forward.
For murals?
Well, I want to leave it a bit open-ended. It might be a mural, it might be a sign, it might be something on the side of a building, but, you know, it's a reflection on our community when it does not look good. And whose responsibility is it to make sure? It's like graffiti. If a building gets vandalized, it's the owner's responsibility to clean that up. So I think that needs to be explored. I don't have the answer, but I think it should be explored while they're looking at options of refurbishing it.
That's good. But, regarding this mural, just so everybody's aware, it's not owned by the city of Thorold. This mural was put on by the person that owns the property. The person is in the process of working with the original person, and they are going to redo the mural. And they're going to move the script up top. So this is being done by the building owner. I can't give you a timeline. I've spoken with them, and so this is something that is in the works. That I can tell you. So it's not going to be the city doing it. It's going to be the person that originally installed the mural and is going to get it refurbished. But that question that you did is further reaching. That's for anything, which I think is a good point. It's something that is long overdue that we should be looking at. So how do you want to attack this, like a staff report or?
Yeah, a staff report, again, there's not an urgency staff report, but something that, if they're looking at this, if there's ideas that come forward, because you drive around other communities and you see some of the murals and they're horrid because they're not maintained. I don't want to name the municipality, but I don't want to be one of those municipalities. So it's great that the owner's taking an active role in trying to mitigate the damage that's been done to it. But I'm glad to see that. It's just a long time coming. Thank you.
So that's, that we come back with some sort of mural and signage language or policy. Is there a seconder for a report on that? Councillor DeRose. Does anyone want to speak to that? And that, I wouldn't say, Jeff, would have to be done in short order.
Me, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Danley.
I just wanted to say that some time ago, I had brought to council's attention the dilapidated murals along the property that's on Wellington Street, and you can see by the Canal Parkway. I believe Mike Sharon was on council then, so a report never did come forward. I did bring it up at one time, as Councillor D'Angelo has just mentioned now, the dilapidation of our murals, and some of the policy be put in place in regards to murals. So I applaud them for bringing it back forward, and hopefully it can be addressed sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Did you want to?
Well, I just wanted to speak to that point. When I was on council in the past, when they were putting murals up, I was pretty staunch or very strong that they should put them so they're removable, right? So you could take them down and fix them, especially on buildings that sometimes are derelict. If the building has to get knocked down, we'd hate to lose the nice mural. We had some really nice murals, but if they're painted on the side of a building, they disappear. But if they're painted onto a canvas, it's sometimes easier to fix if you could take it off the wall. So that could be also part of the policy too.
Okay, so in a mover and a seconder to do that, is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And regarding the recommendation, I think it's being looked after, so. Okay. And we'll follow up on that and get a definitive answer on it, okay? Because CWCD 255, 2023, resolution support by Township of Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards dated August 15th, 2023, supporting the town of Fort Erie for the resolution regarding controls of Airbnb, VRBO, and others which affect municipal rentals. This correspondence was pulled, and Councillor Hare, do you want to speak to it? Go ahead. You've asked to speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've heard this issue very often from residents within Thorold who are concerned that no one lives in the house. It's continually rented out. We have seen something happen city. I believe someone is going to talk about it later tonight or not tonight? No? Not tonight. Okay. Okay. All right. So what I'd like to do is also support these two municipalities. I know it's a small action to send something off to our premier, but if everyone did it, then maybe someone would open their eyes and realize that we have something of a problem with the Airbnb and other rentals where no one seems to take responsibility. I don't know municipally what we have in place to be able to not control, but to outline what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, and to be able to enforce those regulations and requirements. But for starters, I think we should support this and also send off a letter that echoes exactly what is being said here, and maybe we should look at our own policies and see if we can tighten up some of the requirements or policies that we can introduce to reduce these events from occurring within our city.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you.
Hare. Go ahead, Councillor Sentence, and then Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I agree wholeheartedly. I'll even use the word control, because when you have these ghost houses, which is what they are, the owners can be in different countries, they can be far away, they don't care. So if you can rent something out to high school students and you're not even there, that's negligent. So we need to find something, I'm not sure what we can do, but to control that. If you live at the house and you're trying to make an income and you're renting out a space, that makes sense to me. But if you're nowhere near the house, and then we have an issue like happened the other day, we need to control this. So I will support this, but we need to do more to do that. Thank you.
Head Councillor DeRose.
You, Mr. Mayor, I agree wholeheartedly. It is a serious problem. This is one of the issues I get the most calls and texts about. I've discussed it with Jason, and I think Jason's working on it as we speak, and so I'm sure down the road. But I will endorse this Fort Erie letter. It's like Councillor O'Hare said, it's a step. It's a small step. But I honestly, I kind of think a lot of these out-of-town renters have taken our good nature as a weakness, and I think we need to step up and toughen up our penalties. And I've talked to you about this yesterday,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor.
we did.
Make
Yep.
them more severe. Like I would go for severity. So I'm just waiting. I'm looking forward to when the planning department gets bylaw department gets their the report to us, and then we can tinker with it. But I agree wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Then I'm going to have Jason chime in, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is this something that could be attached to the licensing, rental licensing bylaw? Is that what's being, I just want clarity, is that what's being worked on here?
I think it's, well, I'll let Jason, he's here, and Jason can give us a response.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So these, we refer to them as short-term rental properties. These properties do currently require a license through our residential rental licensing program. So that is the process we currently have in effect. All other bylaws still apply to these properties, and we are regularly enforcing those bylaws when such violations occur. But as Councillor DeRose raised, Council has expressed concerns with regards to short-term rentals in the community previously, and that is actively being reviewed further to provide further recommendations to Council at a later date.
Just to further, I know I've spoken on this before, but part of the rental housing licensing bylaw, I like to see a graduated licensing fee. Those that are causing disruption, extra staff, headaches for the neighbors, they pay a higher fee than those that run a good, clean rental unit that fits into the community. Because I could give you numerous ones all over the city that are very disruptive and are impacting lives of others. So we need to get that coming forward soon.
And we've talked about a graduated penalty system and for repeat offenders. And-
Well, that's a penalty system, but I'm talking about even the licensing fee. There's two ways of whacking.
Yeah.
whacking
Anyway,
them.
go ahead, Jason. Did you want to comment again?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I am aware of your recommendations, Councillor D'Angelo, have been raised in the past. The residential rental licensing program has been undergoing a review. That review is just wrapping up, so I'm hoping to bring recommendations to council shortly. And your recommendations with a graduated or tiered type licensing fee is something that's being considered, as well as not just for residential rental licensing, but pretty much all of our bylaws. We will likely be proposing a stepped penalty system for council's consideration in the near future.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead. Who hasn't spoken? Councillor Ditavides, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Jason, can we revoke their renting license? Like if they did, like something that happened like a couple of weeks ago, it was a rental, they had this crazy party. Can we revoke their license so they can't rent that house?
Through the mayor, the bylaw does allow the director to revoke the license under certain circumstances. That decision can be appealed. Now, however, keep in mind that there are provincial legislations, the Landlord Tenant Board Act, that trumps the residential rental licensing bylaw. So revoking the license doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to be instantly evicted. And that's one of the issues that we run into. So it's, again, that is part of the review that we're undergoing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor, you're good. Councillor O'Hara, do you have something to say? And then Councillor DeRose?
Just two very short things, Mr. Mayor, thank you. One, I've often heard that in order to rent or belong to the Airbnb family, the tenant has to live in the house. So unfortunately, when Councillor Ditavides and I were at AMO, we missed the Airbnb booth by one day. We spoke to them briefly, and I think, if I can remember correctly, they may even come and make a presentation to us. Let's face it, they don't want to have their reputation also burned. So maybe if we reach out to them, they may come here and also help with our situation.
Go ahead, Jason.
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, that's certainly a great idea. I just want to make council aware that the term Airbnb has been thrown around. That is just one company. There are several companies that are similar, and I don't know what the criteria is for each one of those.
Thank you. Councillor DeRose, you had your hand up.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Jason, but can we make that the criteria for all short-term rentals? That they have to live there? Because I thought that was one of our bylaws, correct?
Through the mayor, the bylaw does not require the landlord or property owner to live at the property. That would be considered a conventional bed and breakfast, more like along those lines. The residential rental licensing program is in place for the properties that where the landlord or property owner does not live at the property,
or if they do live at the property, they rent more than 2 bedrooms. As far as whether or not we can put those types of restrictions in place, that is something we would need to seek legal opinion on.
Yeah, can you please do that? Because I think that's important. The other thing is, everybody's talking about the housing stock, we need more houses, and these B&Bs or short-term rentals are taking away people's possible house. And the other thing, Jason, I just wanted to mention, we discussed, when I brought this forward many months ago, if we can restrict what parts of town that they're allowed, because personally, I don't believe they should be allowed in residential areas. I'm getting calls from a beautiful street, Renfrew Street, and now there's former Councillor Rob Gabriel's home. It's terrible. Not absentee landlord and parties going to a 90-year-old neighbor knocking on the door in the middle of the night because they had the wrong house. So that's another issue that I'm concerned about is maybe designating areas. Can we do that? Can you get legal opinion? I think you were gonna anyway, correct? Or can you?
Yes, that's something that we're seeking legal opinion on.
Because if you ask me, I think they should only be allowed in the urban area or in the country. That's what I believe, but that's just my personal opinion. You'll have, sure, some good feedback for us. Thank you, Jason.
Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Simpson. I know we have 2 bylaw officers dedicated to residential licensing, and these fall under that. Are they monitoring these websites to see which houses in Thorold are short-term rentals?
Through the mayor, staff are actively reviewing these short-term rental sites, as well as many other sites on the internet that rental properties are advertised. I would say that we don't have somebody dedicated all the time to review them, but we definitely do our best to try and keep on top of them.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to make sure we're looking at that. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point in regards to what Councillor DeRosa said in regards to regulating or designating. I would believe that we would probably be able to do so because in 1998, when the city of Thorold actually had someone applying for an adult entertainment licensing, and the city fought it and lost, we were told then you could only regulating them in of where they could be located, but you could not stop them from running a business. And that would probably be the same would be said with Airbnbs. I don't think we could legally stop them, but we could surely designate the areas for which they could be located in, as the city of Thorold did in the late 1990s with adult entertainment parlors.
Thank you.
So I think we need to get the same legal opinion as we did back then because they supported us then, and I'm sure it would be supported now.
Thank you, Councillor Hanlon. Any further questions? Seeing none, we had a mover and seconder. We use the same mover and seconder for all of them as we did with the block. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 13.9, Agater Road Property Rectification, DS 49-2023. And Councillor D'Angelo, you pulled that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
just a quick comment. I won't belabor the point here, but I just want to thank staff and I appreciate the work they've been doing on this issue, trying to get a resolve, working with the landowners, and it's a continuation of working to get it resolved. So I appreciate the time and effort they've been putting into it.
Thank you, Councillor D'Angelo. Again, same mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Consultant, PWCS 87 2023, Consultant Award Water Master Plan Update. Who pulled this one? Go ahead, Councillor DeRoe.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question to staff. Have we had this done before, this service performed before?
Go ahead, Sean. Did you want to speak to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we did a water master plan some 5 or 6 years ago. This is an update to that plan to identify, accommodate some of the growth and other issues that have come up in the 5 years.
Do you believe it is a necessity then?
Yes, it is.
And can it be done in-house or no?
There's some very specialized software that's used that we don't have the expertise to manage.
Okay, yeah, stay there because I'm going to ask the same questions about 1317.
Okay, so 1316, we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So 1317 PWC S88 2023 Consultant Award Parking Master Plan. Same question? Or
Yeah, have we
you
done
asked
this-
a question? Go ahead,
Have we-
Councilor.
you through, Mr. Mayor, have we done this before, Sean?
No, we have not.
Okay. And in your professional opinion, you think we need it?
I think we do because it's very specialized knowledge. We don't.
Okay, so it can't be done in-house?
That's right.
Okay, I'm just,
No.
I get frustrated with all the consultants we hire, but it's all, if it's necessary, it's necessary.
I think the parking master plan is something that's, we really need to do, and anyways, Councilor DeAngelo.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I'm pretty excited to see this. This is something I've been asking for even when I wasn't on council, especially with the Committee of Adjustments as we're getting a large developments in our downtown core. Parking always popped up and there was no real good answer of do we have adequate parking to be able to expand or to build buildings. So this is great news. It's great. I'm hoping that it also covers the whole city in terms of how we're looking at parking. And will this report, because it was brought up before, this report deal with parking on aprons? Or is this something that we're dealing with prior to it? Because we do have an issue with that we're trying to get resolved. So do we wait till this report comes, or can we deal with parking on aprons prior to that?
Sean or Jason, do you want to comment on that?
There's no reason to wait. We would certainly include that in the report if that is something we want to wait for. But other than, there's no reason to wait.
Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Previously, when this parking on aprons was discussed by council, earlier in the year, council had identified that they were going to wait until the parking study was completed. This will be looked at as part of the parking study. However, as Sean has indicated, council does have the discretion to remove that provision from the parking bylaw at any time they see.
Just to follow up through you, Mr. Mayor, then, what are we looking at timing then for the report to come back? Because if it's over a year, I think we need to deal with parking prior to that. If it's going to be a year to get a comprehensive plan for parking, well, then I would say, if it's over a year, I'm not in favor, I'm in favor of pulling it out sooner. If it's going to be within a year, then I'm okay leaving it there till we get it resolved. So I guess it depends on how long the study
What do
will
you
take.
think that this study timeline is?
Well, part of the study is going to involve many public information centers. So I would suggest that that's probably going to get up to 12 months, somewhere in that range.
Okay, well, if it was up to me, I'd like to deal with the apron parking sooner than later, so if that
That's
could,
fine.
if
We
that
can-
could stay on the agenda,
Yeah.
and the other parking issues can work through the parking master plan.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Sentence. You're speaking to the parking master plan, right?
I am speaking to the parking master plan, but I'm, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor DeAngelo's point, another big one that's come up is the 12-hour parking not being enough. Can we address that as well? I don't know how council feels about it, but 12 hours just doesn't allow someone who works and comes home, they could be ticketed when they come home. Can we deal with that or no?
Well, see, these to me are not time-sensitive items. I think we should be bringing a notice of motion, whether it's apron or that, and dealing with them at a council meeting, that and staff can be prepared for those. I don't think we should be dealing with them like
I
in
just
an
thought we were dealing with
emergency
things now.
tonight. Anyways, go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I mentioned earlier, council certainly has the discretion to amend any of their bylaws at any time they see fit. However, I just want to provide a caution to council that if we decide to make some changes now, and depending on how many changes these are, and then we see the parking study and we re-implement things, it can become confusing to residents. So I'm not trying to discourage council in any way, but I just want them to be cognizant of that.
Okay, go ahead, Sean.
Just for council's knowledge, one of the first things we're going to do as part of this master plan is actually reach out to everybody, including public outreach and about items that they would like to have discussed. So if the 12 hours, one of those things that we want to talk about in the master plan, we can certainly do that.
Okay, Councillor DeRose.
Mr. Mayor, and I have mentioned this to Jason, I am going to ask for a break in procedural bylaw later on in regards to apron parking, just to let everybody know.
I know, but do you think that you can put a notice of motion and bring it next meeting? It's not time sensitive that it needs to be dealt with tonight.
I know, but I keep...
Well, and I think that it needs
keep
to be
getting-
done in a proper way, that we get staff to come back and then they can have some input on what they think we should be doing.
Yeah, I keep getting emails and texts, Mr. Mayor.
There's reasons why
people are-
apron parking was implemented.
Oh,
And
I understand, but I don't think bylaw should be, I'll talk about it later, but I don't think bylaw should use resources, that's not a priority, I don't think.
Well,
in my opinion, and from the opinions of residents.
I'm not saying that apron parking shouldn't be amended. I'm just telling you, the reason apron parking was implemented was because of issues we had in certain areas that have short aprons. And so it needs to be looked at holistically. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Any further? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Dunsmore. Councillor D'Angelo alluded to the full city parking master plan study. So, didn't ask the question. I just want to ask the question. Is it going to cover the entire city, or is it focused on the downtown core?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our intent at this point in time is the entire city.
Excellent.
But depending on how much time we spend on any one section, it would certainly reflect accordingly.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we had a mover and a seconder regarding this parking master plan. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. PWCS 86-2023, Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 17, Thorold signage. And I'll ask Councillor D'Angelo to pull this.
Yeah, with this one, again, it's a good news story, so sometimes we got to celebrate some wins. I know there's two members that are here representing the region. I want to call them Smokey, but that's not the appropriate term, so I'm going to call him Mr. Smoko. Presented at a previous council, and he brought, his presentation was great, and it brought awareness to it, and someone in our community stepped up and is making a donation to purchase the signs that are going to be located throughout our community, identifying the Legion. So again, great community. Love to be a Thoroldite because someone from Thorold stepped up, made a donation, doesn't fall on the city's hands, and we're promoting the Legion, one of our core community groups that do a lot of good for our community. The other thing, I just wanted to sort of bring this up because I know our strategic plan's ending 2023. It's just around the corner. And I know we're going to have to start doing some strategic planning meetings. And I don't know if our CAO is going to start taking some notes here, but I think as we speak, some items should be put in there. And one is gateway signage for some of our community groups that I'd like to see as part of that strategic plan. So if you could just highlight so that we have that discussion there. Nothing better than driving down Thorold Stone Road and having, as you come into Thorold, some actually good signage there indicating the city of Thorold, and B, that some of the great local community groups that we have that can be of assistance or do great community work. So I'd love to see that. So if you could put that on the strategic plan list, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's the PWCS 86-2023. We had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now we move on to items for consideration. CLK 8-2023, operational budget reallocation, purchase of computer equipment. That's not the one up there. It's number 8. There we go. Okay. So we have this up here now, the report. And, can we get a mover and a seconder for this report? Councillor Sentence, Councillor DeRose. Anyone that would like to speak to the report, go ahead, Councillor DeAnge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very supportive of getting modern technology into people's hands, similar to like council did, getting upgraded computers. I have no problem with this. The only question I sort of had, because it ties into a report I asked for earlier that hasn't come forward yet due to timing, but there's a purchase of a desk phone. Now, I asked at one point in time for a report regarding our phone systems throughout our organization. So I just want to be clear that there's no desk phone sitting anywhere in our organization that can be used at this opportunity, because I believe $390 for a desk phone. Is that something that's really required, or can a cell phone mitigate that in terms? That's why I asked for that policy, just to make sure that we're having cell phones where cell phones are good and desk phones where desk phones are good, especially with the way that we've been moving staff around. So I guess my basic question is, do we have a phone sitting around that can be used, or is this a necessary purchase? If so, then we'll get it done. Thank you.
Who wants to?
Take that, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, at present, I'm not aware of any phones that could be reallocated. In this particular scenario, the new phone is for a frontline customer service worker, so they're going to be taking inbound calls for the entire municipality, which is why they definitely need that desk phone as opposed to using a mobile device. And the phone that we would have to reallocate for in the clerk's office would be from another individual that also takes inbound customer service calls. That being said, we can certainly work with IT to see if there might be a phone elsewhere that could be repurposed and save the dollars within the operating budget. But based on our initial understanding, there wasn't one available.
Given the answer, I'm okay with the report, but I just had to ask the question. Thank you.
That's fine, yeah. Okay, so we got did we get a mover and a seconder? Huh?
Yes.
We have a mover and a
Councillor Sentence and DeRose.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. CLCK 9 2023 committee vacancies. I'll wait for the report to go up. And there's the report. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the report? Councillor Decker, Councillor Ditavitas. Anyone want to speak to that report? Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I'd really like to see is that the positions get posted. I've spoken about this same topic in the past, and that is that sometimes we don't do a great job at getting the word out that positions are available, that postings are available, and I'd like to ensure that we can offer these up again to residents who would like to get involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So 14.3 now, CLKC 68 2023. Okay. Road Safety Committee. Okay. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this one? Councillor Ditavitas, Councillor DeRose. Any speakers to this? Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so it's changed from the original motion that was there. We had a 40 kilometer speed limit, so it has changed then.
Yep. So Mr. Mayor, this motion came out of one of our committees, and committee can't put forward a motion just for automatic consideration by council. It does trigger a report to come back. So what we have here is the request for a report on this matter to allow staff to provide that proper insight and background.
Yeah, I have no problem with the current one, but the committee recommendation wasn't that one, so I just want to make sure that they're meshing together. I'm supportive of this one. I think we do need a report outlining options, because the one that came out of the committee, I wasn't at the meeting. They had switched it because they didn't have quorum, so I wasn't there for the discussion. So maybe Councillor DeRose could maybe fill us in a little bit on that discussion. But the original one was for a 40-kilometer speed limit across the board in Thorold. I don't think that at this point in time that's appropriate to jump that without going through a proper process, because there's areas that could apply to, such as I know we're doing traffic calming measures in Port Robinson, and they're looking at 40 kilometers. That could be fitting, so we need to be specialized and targeted when it comes to some of the speed control, because we're not going to be able to enforce all the roads in Thorold. We have to be limiting that, so I like this report for looking at that, and then also working with the committee, the Road Safety Committee, to come back with a good recommendation.
Councillor DeRosa, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we were kind of referring and wanted to piggyback off the St. Catharines pilot project, because apparently they've said there's a lot of success with what they've tried in certain parts of the town. And of course, you know, we would want to keep the cost down and just do it as a sign needs to be replaced. You're not going to go out and replace all signs. But anyway, yes, it was different than that, but I think we're in the right direction anyway. But I think we wanted to look at, emulate what St. Catharines did.
Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, and just, theirs was a trial, a pilot, right? So you get some information, you come back and you say, is this working or not? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Agree, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Sentence, and theirs was very successful apparently. Like, it did make a difference.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want a bit of an update, because it sort of ties into this. We have some speed monitoring devices. Have they been installed yet, or can you ask staff through you when we anticipate seeing those? Because I know we had them in the budget, but that sort of answers Councillor Sentence's question about getting information, because those speed monitors actually record speeds, and that would be quite useful in determining where to pilot and what to do. So I just want to know where we are with those, if they're here, if they're going to be installed shortly, and I know we were looking at rotating them around.
Okay, Sean, do you want to comment on that, or Steve? Steve, you're on the hot seat.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yep, they're here, and we're waiting for locates to install the ones in Port Robinson. Okay.
Just clear, do we have two sets that
We'll have 3 sets total. The one set's ready to go to be installed, and 2 sets are being delivered. So we don't have any other locations at this time, but we could determine where we want to put them in the future.
Yeah, I think that's good that we know there's 2 sets. I'll work with Councillor DeRose, and at our next meeting, if not sooner, come up with a couple locations of getting them installed. So once they're here, they're off the truck and onto a pole. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, we got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. CLCK 69-2023, Environment, Climate Change and Biodiversity Advisory Committee, resolution regarding proposed off-leash dog park. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Sentence and Councillor O'Hare. Now, the report's on the floor, and we're open for questions or comments. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I think there was a part 2 to this, wasn't there? Wasn't there a recommendation to have NPCA do an environmental assessment study? I don't see that up there anymore.
I don't, I'll ask.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that was the recommendation of the committee. Again, as that would likely come with some sort of cost, that would have to get enrolled in a staff report to come back, just to what that would look like. So at present, it's worded to, staff be directed to incorporate that feedback into a future report.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that was going to be my question, just who was going to do this environmental impact? 'Cause it is on our agenda, and I just wanted to know if there was going to be a cost, and I didn't know if our staff had the capabilities to do it, but obviously it's beyond us, or?
I don't know. Is that?
I don't. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if staff have an
wait,
answer to that at present.
Sean will answer that.
Okay,
Or-
thanks, Sean.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we've been in contact with some environmental engineers. We've been looking for some prices on the whole deal, and it will come back as part of a comprehensive report. And no, we don't have the in-house ability to do that.
Okay, so basically, is it the environmental impact of dogs excreting, taking a poop and peeing? Is that what this is about, or? Because I'm assuming that it'll be monitored for people to pick up their own excrement, but you can't do it with pee, but it's, you know, it happens all over the place, because, you know, tons of dogs around, but, yeah, if Councillor Hare can explain, thanks.
Councillor Hare, go ahead.
Thank you. I think what was being asked was not just the excrement that would be left behind, but also the effect that the off-leash dogs would have on the environment, meaning wildlife. There's some geese or ducks that breed there, swans. Also habitat. There are some nesting grounds as well that have special plants. So they just want to make sure that every effect that is left behind doesn't have a negative impact on both the environment and wildlife. So that was why it was requested. Thank you.
I'm hoping they have one that's done somewhere else that we could just piggyback off of, but hopefully that's the case. I hate to waste a lot of money on that, but thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, notices of motion. I call on Councillor DeRose for his notice of motion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
I need a mover and a seconder if you're, to waive, well, I'll let you speak.
Oh, is it? Okay. Is it the one I was going to ask for a waiver to waive procedural bylaw, or?
Yeah. Do
Okay.
you
I
really?
wanted to put a notice of motion for it,
Okay.
because we're skipping ahead here. You asked for notice of motions.
No,
I
we're,
raised my hand.
we're doing the notice
Okay.
of motion that are on the sheet that I'm going by. Then I'm opening the floor to other notices, Councillor Hanlon. There's two here that I'm dealing with first, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, through me, Mr. Mayor, I was hoping to get support to break procedural bylaw, to have support of a motion to temporarily suspend apron parking enforcement until we receive our report on apron parking. And I want to add, unless the car on the apron infringes over the sidewalk or the road. And I know you're scratching your head, Mr. Mayor, but that's my
Well,
motion.
because I think we need to do this in an organized manner, which is to ask for a staff report to come back.
But they are working on a staff report,
No,
Mr. Mayor.
no,
It's
they're
taken a
gonna
while.
work on a parking report. If you wanted just a specific report on apron parking to be dealt with, I don't think it's an emergency, time sensitive to be dealt with tonight, but that's my opinion. If you wanna waive the rules and council agrees to that, then we'll
Mr.
do.
Mayor, I'm getting tons of emails about this, so I don't know if you're not getting them or you're not paying attention to them, but I'm getting a lot of complaints, and the people are starting to feel they're getting targeted. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. If people don't agree, then they won't vote for it.
Okay, so, do we want to, he wants to waive the rules to bring this, a motion forward on apron parking. You need a two-thirds, you need a mover and a seconder, and you need two-thirds to do that. Can I get a, so you're moving it, is anyone seconding that?
So, Mr. Mayor,
We're just waiving the,
Well, can we speak on waiving it?
yep.
yep, there could be
Yep.
discussion on whether or not
waive
it's time
it.
sensitive.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll second it, so we put it on the floor, so I wanted to speak about it. I'd like to see a report come back, only because I don't fully have a grasp of why it was implemented and what are the ramifications. I agree with Councillor Droz that we need to work on this sort of ASAP. If we could dispense with the notice of motion and just ask for a staff report to come to the next council meeting, that would please me, and we can get this expedited in 3 weeks, because I think our next council meeting's in 3 weeks. I'd rather do that than a notice of motion or break the procedural bylaw. It's not super time sensitive, but it is an issue that's affecting residents. that we need to address.
And
So-
I agree, and I've always said, the apron bylaw, I have no problem with amending it, but to scrap it, because there's a lot of reasons why certain things were in there and why they were implemented. I know Councillor Longo was heavily involved in that at the time, so I think a staff report's the prudent way to approach this.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm speaking
I
from-
agree. I'll agree to that. Just, and like I said, Mr. Mayor, I understand the ones that are touching the road and the sidewalk, blocking people from walking, that's a whole different case. I would never want to suspend that, but there's some places in Thorold South that have enough for almost a car and a half.
I
That's
agree.
what I'm talking about.
I agree, and that's why we need to do it prudently.
Thank you.
So
Okay,
you're gonna agree to
amendment,
that, so
yep.
you're gonna move it, and you're gonna second the staff report to come back at the next meeting regarding apron parking, okay?
Exactly, Mr. Mayor. Especially important for us new councilors that weren't here when it actually came in. Last council had a better understanding of it.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
that's good.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we got that. Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, so that was the motion to suspend the rules to allow that. Now you need the motion to ask for the staff report.
oh, okay, okay, so the motion let's do this from scratch again, so it's clear. I had mover, Councillor DeAngelo, second, Councillor DeRosa. Well, no, it was Councillor DeRosa. He's gonna move it, Councillor DeAngelo gonna second it to suspend the rules and bring that motion forward.
Okay, so.
All those in favor? Opposed? Are you opposed, Councillor Longo? Yes. Okay, but we have 2/3. Okay. And now, the second one was the motion to bring the staff report at the next meeting.
So I'll move that.
Councillor DeAngelo's moving it, Councillor DeRosa seconding it, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. Now, what are we up to next? I got Councillor O'Hara. He's bringing a notice of motion tonight because it's time sensitive. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So I'll turn the floor to you on waiving the procedural bylaw because of its time-sensitive nature, and do you want to speak there? And then we'll, if council agrees to waive it, then we'll go on with what your request.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, I'm looking for your support on this. The city of Thorold is very fortunate to receive a donation from NPCA with a value of $5,000 worth of trees and shrubs. It's time sensitive, and that's why I'm bringing it up, and I'll explain that in a very brief minute here. We came into this donation from NPCA because someone who had ordered these trees and shrubs declined on the order, and we just learned about it in the last couple of weeks. So it has come to our attention. We met with NPCA, and we would hate to lose out on this opportunity to be granted $5,000 worth of trees and shrubs. The reason it's time sensitive is because there's also volunteers from Niagara College who are slated to do the planting and help the planting succeed. So if we can pass this tonight, they were already scheduled for September 27th, and it would be wonderful if we could take advantage of that as well.
Okay, so you want to waive the procedure bylaw because of the time?
Correct.
Okay, so.
And if I could just mention one thing, it's just for tree planting. That's all it is. Thank you.
So you're moving it. Can I get a seconder to waive the procedures? Councillor Sentence, okay? So what we're voting on now is we're not voting on that. We're just voting to waive the procedure to deal with that, okay? So we need
Councillor
2/3.
Has a
Can I
question?
talk on that, Mr. Mayor?
You can talk on, if we're waiving the procedure, but we're not dealing with it unless it passes, okay? Then
Can
you
we talk
speak
about,
on
can we
it.
talk about waiving the procedure bylaw and why this here item is time sensitive? Why is it time sensitive? Trees are ourselves and more municipalities? Is there,
Okay,
is there whoever gets to the race first, get the trees? That's my concern here, because Councilor
Okay, well,
Giroux has an
wait,
issue. and
Councilor
it's not
Hanley.
time sensitive, so what makes the trees time sensitive? I'm just asking.
And no, that's a good question, but I think he already mentioned it, but mention it again.
But
Okay.
Hey, wait, Councilor Hanley, he's speaking on why it's time sensitive, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you.
Okay, I got another question too after he answers that one. It's in regards to the date. I got concerned here, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna let you know.
But wait, let him answer the first question, okay? And then you can ask your second question, okay?
Okay.
All right.
All right. So
Thank
why
you.
is it time sensitive?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Handley. It's time sensitive because it was already prearranged with Niagara College, not from us, but from this other source that declined to take the trees, to donate their time in assisting in planting these 400 trees on September 27th. So that date had already been selected. We did not select that, and we're taking advantage of it because it's, as you can imagine, quite a task to undertake to get 400 in the ground.
Okay, so that's the reason.
And I appreciate that. Now I want to know, Mr. Mayor, if I can ask the second question. Who approved us accepting these trees? Not that I'm not against it, I'm all for it, but there is procedure here. So someone had trees out there that were available, and did an individual from the city of Thorold come to the conclusion that we should be in accepting these trees without the knowledge of council?
Well, I think that's going to be dealt with.
Who determined? Who
Okay.
determined we were getting these trees?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, valid question, but I think that's a question to ask if council wishes to deal with the motion tonight.
That's correct. Okay, so what?
Okay, all right.
You can ask that question if we waive the procedure, Councillor Hanlon. Okay, so the vote
Okay, I appreciate that.
The vote now is, we had a mover and a seconder, correct?
Correct.
And now we're voting, we need 2/3 vote to waive the procedure so that we can deal with that item. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? One, two, three, four, five. What?
It's 5 and then you.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so now the procedure's been waived. Now we can open the floor for you to present that, and then Councillor Hanley can ask whatever questions you have. So let's start with you to present the whole spiel, and then Councillor Hanley, maybe you can answer his question during that, or he'll ask you once you're done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start with the necessity to get trees in the ground. It's something I've always spoken about. We know we need them. We know climate change is upon us. We know the great work that trees do. This fell into our laps. It was something that we hadn't anticipated. It occurred very suddenly, and when we were given this opportunity, we thought it would make sense to take it to council and see if we can take advantage of this wonderful opportunity to plant these trees. I know I've spoken before about a 10,000 tree project for Thorold, and this is certainly a great way to kick it off. The benefits are not just for the environment, but also in terms of beautification. Our children's children will thank us for every tree we do get in the ground, and I hope that council will support this initiative. Thank you.
So you're moving that motion. Do we have a seconder, Councillor Sentence? Okay, so now questions. Councillor Hanley, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yes, I just have some concerns, Mr. Mayor, in how this came about in regards to policy, procedural matters. First question is, who decided we would accept the trees?
I don't.
Who decided it?
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think that's part of what we're doing tonight.
Exactly. I don't think anyone decided yet. That's why we're here,
You're here
discussing this
tonight to
matter, and
discuss
I'm.
that. And if you accept the trees.
Okay.
Okay.
I accept that, Mr. Mayor, but hold it. If nobody had yet to accept the trees, then why are we putting a motion on the floor to plant the trees? So if we don't have the trees and we're just getting about to accept them, we have to consider that these trees are already been designated to be planted. So I can't accept that answer, Mr. Mayor. I hate to say it. So somebody decided that we would accept the trees because a date has already been mentioned when the trees would be planted. Now, I know we were given this opportunity, and I appreciate it, the trees, but there's policies and procedures that need to be followed. And where are these trees to be planted? It sounds that there's already been the decision where these trees are to be planted, Mr. Mayor. So if we're not in possession of these trees, how can we be saying that we already have a place where these trees are going to be planted? You see where I'm coming from, Mr. Mayor? So obviously a decision's been made with no council prior knowledge. This has just been thrown on my lap today. And believe me, I'm all for the green and accepting the trees. But what I'm against is how we came about these trees. And now I'm told we actually don't have the trees. So if we don't have the trees, then what are we doing setting something here today that they're going to be planted on a specific date? So obviously somebody's accepted this donation without the prior approval of council. And now this council's here today to accept the fact that we're going to accept them and we're going to plant them on this specific day. So as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the trees, but the policy's been blown right out the door here. I believe that individuals have gone over their means as far as a municipal act is and accepting a gift from somebody because read between the lines. Someone has accepted a gift here because we've already said we're going to plant them. And that's council procedural bylaws, code of conduct bylaws have been broken as far as I'm concerned. So we've accepted a waiver of the bylaw, but Mr. Mayor, I agree. I disagree totally in how this has come about because it's obviously we have accepted the trees.
Well, I
That's
don't
my
think we
comments,
have,
and that's
but
all I have to
anyways,
say.
do you want to speak on that, Councillor O'Hare?
Exactly, addressing what Councillor Handley's saying. We have not agreed to the trees yet. We are here to discuss whether or not council will grant permission to accept these trees that were turned down by somebody else, and now NPCA would like to donate them to Thorold. If you wish, Councillor Handley, you can vote against this proposal. That's perfectly okay.
I'm not going there. It's the policy and the way that it's come about. So you're telling me that they offered them to Thorold and the MPCA only offered them to Thorold? They never offered them to any other municipality. It just happened that out of 12 municipalities, they just fell in the city of Thorold's lap, and that's my concern, okay? They just didn't fall in the lap. Somebody went out and solicited these trees or whatever, and were in possession of them. Again, I'm no wrong. It's the way they came about to being in our possession. It's obviously that an agreement's been made, and it's here to be passed tonight to plant them. So that's all I got to say. So if this is the way we're going to run council, then so be it. But we're breaking procedure.
Thank you, Councillor Handley.
And we're breaking code of conduct.
Anyone else want to speak to that? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, can I just ask where these trees are supposedly going to be planted?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor DeRose, the intention was to plant them at the cemetery. There's lots of open green space there, and we thought that it was appropriate that they be planted at the cemetery. They can serve a couple of purposes, especially with the Walker Industries so closely located there. They can help clean some of the air at the cemetery at the same time and add beautification to the cemetery.
Also, you keep saying we and ours. Who's we?
When I say we, I guess I mean the city. So I should say the city of Thorold.
So obviously staff's been involved with this prior to council's knowledge.
Yes, we have met with NPCA. We've always been meeting with NPCA, talking about the environment, how we can improve the tree canopy in Thorold. That's where this came from. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the first I've heard of this. If anybody else has heard of it, then let us know, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeRose. Go ahead, Councillor DeAngelo.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking at an email that came out Monday, and it gave a suggestion. City Parks and Trails Recreation Master Plan identifies 9 existing trail systems. Are we looking at planting trees along those trail systems? There's 400 trees, there's volunteers. Again, before we jump and take these trees, everyone loves to have trees, but do we have the capacity to deal with these trees all in one day from staffing purposes? So through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can ask the appropriate staff, can we, because there's going to be volunteers there, but someone's got to manage the volunteers. They can't just be there alone. And so now we have to have staff resources to manage that. Are we capable of managing that at several sites to get these trees planted?
Who wants to handle that question from a staffing perspective?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's really up to the council to decide where and when and if we move ahead with the tree planting. The only reason why the suggestion was made about the cemetery was because in our cemetery service delivery review, it talked about enhancing some of the green space to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So in the short timeline that we were given to try and implement this, we looked at, my staff and myself, under my direction, looked at the cemetery as being a site where you can host an event for planting in a relatively compact area and in an area that is in dire need in this community.
Okay, so again, if I could, we have the date, it's September 27th. Do we have staff to appropriately supervise the volunteers to plant those 400 trees in one location?
So, Mr. Mayor, the proposal that was given to us from the Conservation Authority was to contribute $5,000 towards 1,000 trees. And they have procured through Sassafras Farms about 850 trees, 150 shrubs, if we want them. They had committed to Niagara College for the 27th to have 400 of these plants installed and planted. It would mean that our staff would have to do some preparation work, which we would accommodate through our normal operating budget. The remainder of the trees could be provided in a special event that would involve volunteer groups to come to the cemetery and plant the remaining 600 trees or bushes. In the very short time that this was dropped on our lap, this is what we've come up with as the best solution. Now, I should also remind you that we're also going through a procurement process for our annual tree planting program. And when we bring the results of that tender back, we'll identify other locations across the city where these trees could be planted. So we're trying to balance a couple of things that are sensitive, time sensitive, and try and take advantage of the fact of this free offer that we can leverage some in-kind contribution from volunteer groups. However, if the city has a different interest or different perspective as to where they go, staff will be happy to follow your direction.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I was involved in a tree planting barrage when Melswart Park opened. The Hydro got access to about 200 trees, and we planted those all in Melswart Park. It was a very labor-intensive day. A lot of work had to be done. So that's my concern is, do we have the resources to do that? I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just want to make sure that we don't get, now it's, and I'm not sure now if it's 400 trees or 850. I'm a little confused because I got a couple numbers thrown at me there. So if it's 400 trees, that's a lot of planting in one day. Like, because you have to dig a hole for these things. You can't just put them on the ground and then let them go. So that, and I don't know the size of them. I don't know the actual work that's involved. Do they have the machinery? Do they have the equipment? These are all things that I don't want to all of a sudden say, okay, let's go ahead and do this and dump that onto Mr. Holman and his staff. And then all of a sudden, you know, it becomes a disaster because it can't be managed within that one day. That's my concern, because that's what I hear is that we have one day to execute this, this tree planting. Then another component you mentioned, that we can have additional trees and hand those out. Like, I'm a little confused with some of the information that's coming forward here. Some people have had it in advance, some people are just getting it. So I guess we're trying to muddle through this at council of trying to figure out what's the best. And I know there's been issues other councilors have brought up. I know we're trying to muddle through this so that we could get these trees planted, but I just want to make sure this is done professionally. It's adequate, and nobody, at the end of the day, comes out as a disaster, because that's the last thing we want. So sometimes when stuff is gifted to you or falls in your lap, it's harder to deal with. So I'd like to hear some more discussion, but yeah, I'm a little conflicted if we're gonna dump all 400 trees in one location. I'd like to see on a map where we're looking at doing it. I was out, and the reason I say this, because I was out at the cemetery dealing with some family issues, and while I was out there, I had a good opportunity to chat with the two individuals that work out there, and we talked about the new mausoleum, how it's gonna impact it, and there's a whole area that needs trees to cover part of the landfill site, so we talked a little bit about that. You know, we have the building that needs to be, the administrative office that needs to be done. There hasn't been any work started. Hopefully the tenders are out to get that going. So there's a lot of stuff happening at the cemetery, the mausoleum, the building, and I just don't want to throw this on top of it that's causing more work, because we need to set some priorities and get things done. People are looking for mausoleum crypts, and people are looking for the use of the building out there. So that's why I'm looking at the whole picture, not just the trees, and if it's gonna impact all the cemetery staff, that could be detrimental. So that's why I asked the capacity question. So I'll leave it at that right now. I'm still reserved on what we're doing here. I'm waiting to hear some other suggestions and other concerns that other councillors have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Delavides.
I'm for the trees, but I have a couple of concerns. I was there with my mother. A design, I want to see a proper design in place. I think we should spend, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to get a designer. And I want to make sure that's all we're doing, just trees.
Councillor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have to take, if we decide to do this, all the trees at one time? Or can there be different dates that the planting would take place? And do you have an idea of where the trees are going to go? Are they gonna go closer to the road so that it does give coverage where Walker Brothers is? Sort of, so when you come into the gate, are you looking at that area there? So it doesn't infringe then on the construction that's gonna happen near the offices and the mausoleums? Do we know that, or so do we have to take 400 trees all at once, or can it be spread out? I mean, I think it's great that we're getting these in kind, but yeah, perhaps doing all of it in one day is maybe too much for everybody to handle. So is that also an option if this were to happen?
Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Decker. To be honest, I don't have the answer for that. You're right in assessing that section, the east side of the cemetery, as being very open and could easily take many, many trees there. As far as the planting goes, the representative from NPCA said that these are experienced tree planters from Niagara College. They're from the Environmental Studies program. And these 40 students can put in 400 trees in a day. So I'll just go with her word on that. But I would like to have some of our own volunteers as well out there. So.
Yeah, I like the idea. I like the area where you're looking at. Yeah, so as long as it's works with everybody and not gonna be there for, 20 hours, I guess. I'm not really sure. I've never planted trees and stuff, so I really don't know the ins and outs of that. So I think it's a great idea as long as it works with everybody involved.
Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for full disclosure, I was invited to a meeting this week to discuss this, where I was given some details. I think the reason was because I said in the environmental committee, you know, I'm all for planting trees, and I think we can do something good here with this donation. But I'd like to ask a few questions and then maybe make a few suggestions.
Go ahead.
I guess the first thing is, and I did ask this of staff the other day, I didn't really get an answer. We're gonna bring in volunteers to plant trees in a location, okay, which I understand is a cemetery property. Is there an issue with the union here? Do we need to talk about that? Is there gonna be any backlash because we're working on city property? So I think that's something we need to have out in the open tonight. I don't know if we can do it out in the open. I just asked a question, but it is a question, so I don't know if that needs to wait, but it's, I think, something that needs to be considered. So I don't know if somebody wants to answer that or ignore it.
No, I don't think it should be ignored, but I don't have the answer, but maybe staff does.
I don't know if the CAO wants to answer this, but my response is that if our staff is all busy and working on projects, they'll be there to assist. They'll be there to do any preparation work, any heavy equipment operation they'll be responsible for. But it basically involves drilling holes in the ground for 1, 3, and 5 gallon pots that will be dropped off near the holes. The volunteers will be responsible for preparing the final hole and maybe some minor handwork, some fertilization, planting, and then moving some mulch. That's the extent that we would require from the volunteer groups. And the process is really to be completed in a morning, 2.5 hours.
Okay, let's then we'll assume there's not an issue with that. So I think what I understood in my vision here is, and if you look at the cemetery, if you've been by, the new section especially, obviously, is quite barren. I think there's fear here that these trees are gonna be put in close to cemetery plots and things of that nature. My understanding was these trees would be planted along the perimeter of the cemetery property, okay? Far away from the designated burial sections, and it would enhance the overall appeal of the property. And let's get the elephant out of the room. There's been some concern that this was going to be designed and turned into a walking area. I objected to that the other day. I hope that everybody is on board with that. And I'm stating the way I feel. I think the cemetery needs to remain, you know, a very dignified place. I don't think it's a place we want people, there's some fear that there'll be people coming out to jog and exercise and bring their dogs for a walk. I think we need to get away from that. I think the idea here is to plant trees around the perimeter to beautify the space and take advantage of an opportunity. What we do with the excess trees, I don't know. I have ideas, but I'm just one person. And I don't know if tonight's the night to get into it, but we need to figure out a way to store the other hundreds of trees that we can't plant in that one day and figure out a plan to get them planted at a later date, either in the cemetery or in other public spaces. But that's what I would propose with this. And again, I'd hate to turn away the opportunity to beautify the city. And I think we need to get the trees in the ground. There's a saying, and I agree with it, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. So let's not miss the opportunity.
So how many trees are there altogether?
Sorry. There's 400 from the NPCA donation, but they've covered up to $5,000 worth, which I believe would probably cover closer to the 500, 600 range.
Okay.
Sorry,
finish up.
Mr. Mayor, can we just use this as an opportunity to clarify the exact wording of the motion that's on the floor?
Yep, we can do that, and then I'll go back to Councillor Longo because he's not done.
Could I ask a question? Well,
Yep, go ahead.
so I'm confused because I've been told a few times that it's 850 trees and 150 shrubs. It was repeated again tonight, but now there's only 400 trees. So again, I'm not quite sure exactly what we're trying to do.
That's
400 trees is more manageable, in my opinion,
Yeah.
right?
So you're saying it's 400, but it could be up to 5?
400 and some, okay, it may be 450, was the original order that the original client had placed. That is what NPCA is donating to the city of Thorold if we choose to accept them. But the NPCA said they would donate up to $5,000 worth, and the 450 trees and shrubs may not cover the full 5,000, so there may be more available. That's my understanding.
So, sorry, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
if I could just interject.
Yep, go ahead.
Just to confirm then the wording of what's being considered at this time. So
Yep.
at this time, what's being considered is the utilization of the donation of the 400 some trees and shrubs to be planted on that date of the 27th. And what is not on the floor is any additional funding which may be brought for consideration at a later date.
So I would say 400 plus, because we
Yes.
don't know the exact number, okay?
Okay, so just to confirm, then that is what is on the floor currently for discussion, and remaining discussion on this should stick to the consideration of that motion.
Yes. Did you have anything further, Councillor Longo?
Again, I just want to reiterate that it's my feeling that we need to alleviate any fear that we're trying to turn the cemetery into a walking trail, okay? So the planting of these trees needs to be done in a way that isn't going to promote that in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hanley's been waiting a while.
Yeah, but I'm trying,
Yep.
Councillor Sentence, go ahead, then Councillor Hanley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been waiting for Councilor Longo to speak as well. I know they're on the committee. So to me, this seems to have come, the 400 I'm talking about, have come through the committee, from another organization, through the committee, time sensitive, discussed with staff, coming to us for approval or not. We all talk about trees every time we talk about a subdivision or anywhere else. We all talk about, climate change and helping. I went out to the cemetery myself. Barren, I went there today, is a light word. There's nothing out there. So I would say that we should be taking this and doing the 400 now and then look at the other ones later. So I think we need this, and I'll be voting to have this. Thank you.
Councillor Hanley, go ahead.
Just one last thing. Me personally, I have nothing against getting the 400 trees. What we should do, we have a significant parcel of land out there. We should be taking the trees, making a nursery type of area, so that when we do the mausoleum, we have trees to be planted. We have a tree planting program in the city where if someone wants to request a tree, we're presently going out and we're purchasing trees from other nurseries. If anything, yes, it's a great opportunity, and it's a great opportunity for the city to use a significant piece of land we have at the north end of the cemetery and start a little nursery. It'll be decades before that end of the cemetery gets filled up with internments, and that's a great opportunity for us. I have nothing against the trees. It's just the way it came to be, and that some councillors were given the insight of what was coming forward tonight at council, and other councillors were not even notified of such. So in the future, I'm asking that if councillors are going to be bring this type of forward to council, please notify us all. Just don't.
Councillor.
Please discuss with all councillors, not some. Sorry, I unmuted. That's my only concern.
Thank you.
I've been blindsided tonight, and that shouldn't be occurring in this day and time. We have emails, we have internet, we have great resources to give everybody on board and not be blindsided when you come to a council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Counselor, go ahead, Counselor DeRose, then Counselor Dean.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. After talking to some staff, we've got 4 passive parks that have been identified as potential for tree planting. Mel Swart, DQ, South Confed, Rails to Trails, along the Rails to Trails, or Beaver Dams Park. I don't understand why we have to me, the cemetery is a sacred place. Having these people come in, to me, that's not, I don't know, I just don't like the idea. I think there's so many spaces those trees can be utilized for cover where people can go enjoy and have a picnic at Mel Swart Park rather than the cemetery. I do want the trees. I don't want to do it at the cemetery.
Thank you. Counselor DeAngelo.
Can you refresh, what's the motion on the floor?
Motion, we'll put it back up, okay?
Okay. From reading that, I think we're all in agreement to move the tree, to get the trees and plant them. I would like, and I'm looking at our council agenda, it is time sensitive in the sense that we have to accept the trees, so we can do that tonight. But I would recommend that we have a report come to our special council meeting next, on the 19th, with a more detailed plan of how these trees are gonna be planted at the Lakeview Cemetery. I still have additional questions, but I think we need a report here, because I don't wanna be flying off the seat of our pants saying, okay, we'll take these 400 trees. Again, what staffing, what equipment, what size are these trees? Where are they gonna be located? Like, those are the questions I have that can't be answered tonight. Another week won't hurt us in terms of getting a report. We're gonna agree, they could contact the conservation, and then we could firm up the number. If it's 400 plus, I'd like to know exactly how many trees, and if there's a surplus of trees, what other ideas can come forward. So next Tuesday, we already have a meeting scheduled. We could start a little earlier. At least we have the basis, and it goes to Councillor Hanley's point. Then we're all having the same information. We can all make the decision. I think we're all in agreement to move forward, but I don't know if we're all in agreement in how it's gonna be done and what it's gonna look like. And I think, to me, that's where a staff report would be really good. And we have time to do that.
Counselor Longo, go ahead.
I agree 100%, and if that's a motion, I'll second it.
So what we want to do is we're going to accept the trees. We know we're going to plant them at the cemetery. Has everybody agreed with that? But how they're going to be planted and where will be, we'll receive that information next Tuesday?
Yeah, again, they may not, like, without seeing the plan, like, can they put 400 trees at the cemetery without causing an issue? Because they got to be spaced out too. If there's excess trees, that's where I want to see in the
So
report.
if there's
saying-
excess trees, where are, they'll,
And
landmarks?
this is where Councillor DeRose mentioned that we have some passive parks
Yeah.
that could use. So maybe 50 trees could go to Mel Swart and reduce the amount at the cemetery. So we're all winning from this. And then the councillors could volunteer to go plant those ones so that we
So,
have volunteers.
So Jeff, is that workable, that next week we can have a plan and say, these trees are gonna go in these areas, and if there's some left, maybe we can put them here? Is that doable?
Report's ready, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Councillor Dedham.
No, I just want to say I agree totally with Henry, what he said. We need a little plan going forward, and we need a proper design for the long term to make this place look beautiful. And I'm glad Anthony brought that up about the trail. I know my mother, all her friends were very distressed this afternoon. She was so upset, and they kind of like blindsided. So I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Longo.
So we got a motion from Councillor DeAngelo, and Councillor Longo said he'd second it. We're gonna pass the existing motion, but a staff report's gonna come with a detailed report on where we're planting these. Is that what we're looking for? Am I?
And I'll let staff do some magic on the 19th, because I know we have a big meeting that night, so.
If we have to start a half hour early, it'll be at staff's direction.
Yeah,
At the direction of the clerk, and I'll agree to it, so I'll tell you that right now. If we have to start at 6 for that, then we'll start at 6, okay? Go ahead, before you call the vote.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make a comment, and this is why I don't agree with the cemetery location. I've got a septic system. I had to remove trees because the roots I found out can grow 60 to 90 feet. So you have to make sure, if you are doing it at the cemetery, you better get a tree specialist to tell you how far those roots are gonna grow, because you don't wanna be disturbing the deceased, our relatives, our families. So that's my main concern about the cemetery. I just feel like there's so many other parks that need trees, and I'm not a fan of doing it at the cemetery. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion before we call the vote here?
Yeah, just to make sure to help Councilor DeRose, can we have pictures when it comes back with the report of where these trees are gonna be located? So it gives us some, we all been out to the cemetery, so we know, but I think that should
Give
be
you an
part of the
over,
report.
they can give you a schematic of where they're.
And distance to the closest grave site, or potential grave site.
Okay. That's the motion. You see it on there. We have a mover, Counselor D'Angelo. I have a seconder, Counselor Longo. Any further discussion? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, that was the amendment. You just now need to carry the motion as amended.
Okay, I'm sorry. And that's the amendment. Now the motion as amended. Same mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
And Mr. Mayor, given the time, can I ask you to call for a motion to extend?
Yes, can I get a mover and a seconder to go past 10 o'clock? I got Counselor Sentence moving. Can I get a seconder? Counselor Decker. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. So that's those two. Is there any other notices of motion? Go ahead, Counselor Sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'd like to make a notice of motion to refer something to the Road Safety Committee for a recommendation on putting a stop sign at McNamara and Front Street North. They've been having a lot of issues there, so I'll explain more when it comes.
And it'll come in your notice, okay? Counselor Hanlon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm wanting to reintroduce a motion that I withdrew at the January, February meeting, I believe it is. I'm going to get the details, and it was in regards to hiring a law firm and getting information from the consortium with the Canada Games. I delayed my motion at that time because I was assured that we were going to be getting some information that had been requested from Councilor DeRose, but as to this date, we have not yet received that information, so I'm going to reintroduce my motion as I was going to present it, and I will talk to the clerk in regards to that.
Thank you, Counselor Hanlon. Is there any other motions? Okay, motions, Committee of Adjustment Reimbursement. Call on Counselor D'Angelo for his motion concerning Committee Adjustment Reimbursement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna, well, the reason that this motion is being brought forward was due to committee members asking about mileage that was taken away. It was paid last term, but it wasn't paid this term, and the response was it wasn't in the terms of reference. So that's why this resolution's coming forward. And in the wisdom of council, they put a city councilor on there. So a couple of them have approached me to find out why, and this is the mechanism of correcting it. So I'm going to read a couple whereases and then get to the motion. The Committee of Adjustment is responsible for considering minor variances to Thorold's zoning bylaw, enlargements or extensions of building structures that is legal non-conforming, as well as the creation of new lots through consent, severance process, boundary adjustments, easements, rights-of-ways, and long-term leases. Whereas the Thorold Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial committee that follows the Planning Act, and the appointed committee members follow the principles set out in the Planning Act, decisions of the Thorold Committee of Adjustments can only be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Whereas the committee members are selected by council and are given the delegated authority to make decisions regarding minor variance, consents, and other matters defined by the Planning Act on behalf of the City of Thorold. Whereas decisions by the committee have financial implications to the City of Thorold, members should have good understanding of the planning issues and encouraged to participate in opportunities to further their knowledge by enrolling in training and education opportunities. And whereas the committee member is required to have mandatory training as set out in the current terms of reference, that volumes 1 to 6 of the Committee of Adjustments training offered by the Ontario Association of Committee of Adjustments and consent authorities be completed. And whereas the committee duties mandate that members do actual site visits regarding applications on the monthly agenda, the mileage reimbursement being paid, that has been paid in prior thorough the committee of adjustments that had served on the 2018-2022 committee. Whereas the following items are not covered through the terms of reference, and whereas the expenses paid to the committee members as reimbursements are not paid by the taxpayers' general levy, but these reimbursements are covered by application fees collected by the Planning and Building Department. In accordance with the notice of submission deadline requirements of section 11.1 of the City of Thorold's procedural bylaw, the city clerk received Councillor D'Angela. If that could just be noted that my name's spelled incorrectly. And it's also been mentioned incorrectly. Please address me as Councillor D'Angela, not D'Angelo, and I don't even know how to pronounce that, but thank you. A motion to be brought forward for consideration at the September 12th, 2023 council meeting respecting Committee of Adjustment reimbursement. Therefore, be it resolved that the council of the corporation of the City of Thorold enact as follows: that members of the committee shall be reimbursed for mileage for business use of their personal vehicle at the rate established by the Canada Revenue Agency automobile allowance rates. Mileage shall be calculated based on the lesser of kilometers from City Hall or normal city work location to the destination, or kilometers from home to the destination, which is similar to City of Thorold employees and members of council of Thorold Council Policy 100-12. The committee members' education and training opportunities be paid by the City of Thorold, similar to Thorold employees and members of Thorold Council. That the committee members have their membership to OCA, which Ontario Committee of Adjustments, continue to be paid by the City of Thorold. That the committee members' attendance at conferences, workshops, seminars, conventions related to the mandate of the committee or the committee memberships in profession, municipal organizations, or associations be reimbursed, subject to approval of attendance from the Committee of Adjustment by resolution prior to the enrollment date. Item number 5, that the following conference, workshop, seminar, convention expenses outside Niagara be eligible for reimbursement: registration fees, mileage allowance accordance with policy above, economy airfare or train fare, meals with a receipt up to $75 a day, no alcohol can be claimed, a per diem in the amount of $75 per day, which is similar to that of members of Thorold Council Policy 100-13. And item number 6, that the above resolutions be applied retroactive to the beginning of this term for the members of the committee, including the terms of reference. And that's item number 7, that staff be directed to conduct a review of the compensation and allowances for the Thorold Committee of Adjustment, considering all local municipality Committee of Adjustments in Niagara, similar to reviews done for city employees, to be presented at the next council meeting. So, Mr. Mayor, basically this was a cleanup of the policy to make sure that the terms of reference includes items that have been occurring and then items that can occur in the future. So that was the intent of this, is more of a housekeeping and cleanup.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Longo. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next, I'll call on Councillor DeRose for his motion considering ice surfacer performance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, whereas other communities and municipal staff have advised that there are some issues with their recently purchased ice resurfacers frequently breaking down, whereas councillor must ensure that taxpayers receive value for the $200,000 spent on our machine, whereas there are other municipalities that have returned purchased machines within the 2-year warranty window due to ice resurfacers' frequent breakdowns and reliability issues. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Thorold enact as follows: that staff be directed to provide information respecting what will be done with the 2 propane ice resurfacers owned by the city that were in excellent condition prior to the recent replacement purchase. That staff be directed to provide a detailed explanation of why it cost the 9,300 tax accounts in Thorold an extra $50,000 for our ice resurfacer for one arena we have in town, when the consortium, Broxton County and Thorold, has approximately 80,000 tax accounts and takes care of 2 arenas, but paid $50,000 less. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Longo. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll second it because he's put it on the floor here. I guess he wants some things answered, but I guess the first thing, when he started reading and I was reading along, it talks about, I guess, some communities are having issues with these, but nowhere in the report is it asking if we're having any issues. So I just would like to know, I'm assuming they're working good, I hope they are, but in this report, can we direct staff to just tell us how that equipment's performing?
Yep. So to be included on how the performance of our units, okay? Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff perhaps, I'm not sure. Did we not already receive a report on this? Was it not already explained to us that our purchase was the Cadillac version in comparison to the Brock University purchase, and we received multiple extras on top of the base unit?
Jeff, do you want to?
I don't recall, I know the questions were asked, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if it came back to council in the form of a report. All the information we had was provided to the clerk, I think in response to an FOI request. But if council would like to have that information back, I'd be happy to share that information.
Thank you. Councillor Dibony.
I think this is an issue we should not be focusing on. It's 2 years ago. It's time to move forward. I think we got to start using our time more efficiently. You know, that's my opinion.
Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, I agree. We, in my opinion, we dealt with this. We were given the information about the parts and everything that was going on. And I think we should be moving on, so I won't support this.
Councillor Hanley.
I will support it. Doing my due diligence as a counselor, I reached out to city employees who, in fact, operation of the ice surfing machine. It has broken down several times since the city has purchased it. A lot of counselors probably aren't aware of that. I did personally speak to individuals, and there has been continuous issues with the equipment. The company Zamboni actually really does not make electrical or electric Zambonis. They take a propane Zamboni and just put a battery pack in it. So we have had issues with the city of Thorold. I believe we do need a detailed report because I am looking out for the taxpayers' dollars. And to me, from talking to individuals in other areas, they're not up to performance for what the taxpayers have paid for. So if we're not going to worry about the taxpayers' dollars, then we just let it go to the wayside. But I can support it because I have concerns with the equipment, and it has not been up to par, and there have been several breakdowns with our equipment already. And a lot of them, the similar part over and over again, just to let council know.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor DeRose, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the reason I brought it up. I just want to get it done before the 2-year window. I know Councillor Sentence, well, 2 years ago, you know what? It doesn't matter. It's taxpayers' money. We have to be careful with every penny we spend. I did get calls from staff that the machine was breaking down frequently, and that's why I brought this forward. And I did get calls from, I had discussions with other communities that are returning theirs. So thank you.
Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to ask Jeff, through you to Jeff, has it broken down a lot of times, and were things, from what I understand from my talks with the people that work down there, they were covered under warranty, whatever did break down. So has it been constantly breaking down? Because as far as I know, we still have some of the best ice in the Niagara region. Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, I was advised today for the first time that there were a couple of situations that were addressed under warranty. But I'd be happy to share the maintenance records on this piece of equipment and all of our equipment. The manager of community services is here, if you'd like to ask him questions about whether we lost any ice rentals as a result of the equipment, or whether the maintenance is being performed properly. Ask your questions. We have nothing to hide.
Thank you, Jeff. Any further questions? Did I get a seconder for that? Yeah, okay. Okay. There's no further questions. We had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Put your hands up, please. All those opposed? All those in favor? I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? I got 4. I'll break the tie. Opposed. Thank you. I still think like that information on anything is public knowledge, and our staff will be more than happy to share it with everyone. Statement by councilors. Councilor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring up an issue with committee meeting attendance. I know that I sit on a committee that we're having issues with attendance, and I've heard from other committees that they are also having the same issue. So when we're receiving emails that we have committee meetings to attend, we're getting maybe a response just from that person that's not attending. So then we're assuming that all those who have not responded are coming to a meeting. We go to our meeting and there's just the city staff, council rep, and maybe one other person, so we're not making quorum. So no one else is responding. We're assuming the people that aren't responding are coming, and that's not happening. So I'm not sure if there's something we can do going forward to ask them to respond that yes, they're coming, or no, they're coming. Because there's meetings that we need to have things discussed that are really important for events that are coming up, or perhaps other issues that are happening. And these people have signed up to be on these committees, and they're not coming to the meeting. So we've been having some problems. So I know I spoke with Matthew. Perhaps there's something we could do to, you know.
Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'll just advise, Mr. Mayor, that a number of committees did take a break over the holiday, over the summer, and I think that might be part of the issue, but we are seeing a similar trend, and we're going to make some efforts on the clerk's office to send some reminders to meetings, and within those reminder emails also be asking that individuals get back to us with their attendance so we can move a meeting if necessary or cancel one. That being said, I am looking to bring a report sometime in October talking about committees in general as we look for the new year and start to get ready for that. Then I'll include some information on attendance for that as well, so council's aware.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you. It's just a statement by councilor, but what?
Just a suggestion to help the process. So can we send out meeting requests for meetings so that they can be accepted? That usually I find works, and it gets into people's calendars. Just a suggestion.
On the email, yep. That's what we do at the Town and Gown Committee. Okay, Councillor Hanley, you had a statement. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had already discussed with Mr. Santos, so we discussed it. In the discussion, I've learned that there's some issues with the grounding with the poles, which I can relate to being in the hydro business. And he's let me know that we've hung an overhead line in an area, in a Tupper area, I believe, to rectify one of the problems. So we're working on the problem right now on McCann, and we're going to address some issues that we have in the Rolling Meadows areas. It's unfortunate that some of the residents have to deal with the streetlights not working appropriately and in a timely fashion, a manner you might say. But I've been assured by Mr. Santos that the address has been and being addressed, and I've let the residents know that we're trying to address their concerns as quick as possible.
Thank you, Counselor Hanley. Okay, so now we're gonna move into closed session. So before I ask for a mover and seconder to go into closed session, I would like to remind you of your obligations respecting closed session. Those who are participating electronically in the closed session must ensure that no other person is in the location from which they are taking part in the meeting, or make appropriate arrangements so that any other persons cannot see or hear any of the confidential deliberations taking place. If this is not possible, you must withdraw from the meeting until it has reconvened in open session. Now the motion. You're gonna
Just
put
need a
it
mover
up?
and a seconder to go into closed?
Yeah, can I get a mover and a seconder? Counselor Sentence is the mover, Counselor Decker is the seconder. And the motion's up, you putting it up?
Yep.
That council do now move into closed sessions for the purpose of receiving information of a confidential nature respecting a matter of commercial and financial information supplied in confidence to the municipality, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position of a third-party organization. Under Section 239(2)(1) of the Municipal Act 2001, and a matter of a position to be applied to negotiations to be carried on by the municipality under Section 239(2)(k) of the Municipal Act 2001, renting of meeting spaces as office space for city staff. Okay, so we got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So we'll take a quick few